Good morning, everybody. I am live with Quinn Kotecki, who I saw a post from you on Reddit where you did a quick bat rep about what you went through. And I decided I was going to reach out to you and ask you about your time playing Grey Knights. Nephilim, at least for me, has been a time of change, and I'm a little lost and confused about what I'd like to be doing with my own Grey Knight play. So I thought that it would be cool to bring you on and pick your brain. You recently placed first, excuse me, oh, woo, good morning, at the Warpstorm RTT. Was that down in Wisconsin? That's
Yeah,
where you're from, right?
it's southeastern Wisconsin. It's South Milwaukee.
Awesome. Well, let's just get straight into things. But first, I will remind everybody we do these as live streams, so you can ask us questions as we're bopping through my normal list of things that I ask. But let's start out with how long you've been playing Warhammer and why Grey Knights?
So fun fact, I opened up a local game store and brew pub in South Milwaukee. Uh, November of 2020 is when we opened up the game
Oh
store side.
no.
Yeah, we actually opened up the brew pub side a week before lockdown in March of 20, and thankfully we made it. Then I had some regulars that were playing Warhammer. They used to play outside of a coffee shop that's right next to our LGS. And they saw we opened and they walked in. They're like, "Hey, do you guys mind if we use some space to play Warhammer?" I was like, "Yeah, by all means. That's what we're here for." And that was February of 20, and that was my first introduction to Warhammer. Or sorry, that was 21. So February
Okay.
of last year was my first introduction into Warhammer, and I saw a game of Space Wolves versus Necrons, and like everybody in the room just went crazy and started like hollering at something. I was like, I don't know what they're hollering at, but boy, do I want to be involved. Turned out the Nightbringer just one shot like a unit of Thunderwolf cavalry, and I was like, yeah, whatever that is sounds great. I got a good imagination. I can pretend that I'm watching a movie and something like that happened. So I joined a couple of the buy sell trade pages on Facebook, and I saw a guy selling a huge Necron list, and they had just gotten their new codex drop, and people were like, "Oh man, they're probably going to be good. New codex just came out." So I got approximately 10,000 points of Necrons from 'em for $1,000.
Holy moly. Painted and
I did
everything?
it a lot part like I would say partially painted, and then some stuff still
That's
like
fair. It is 10,000
nuanced
points.
hue. Yeah, it was a lot, but it's like I didn't know how good of a deal that was at the time until I got my GW rep up and going, and I'm like, man, this hobby's expensive. And I was then I just tried learning a little bit here and there, and a gentleman named Josh, he was 24 or 25 at the time, and he was a Milwaukee school teacher, and Grey Knights were his favorite army. And he did nothing but like talk about him. Voldus was his favorite character. And 2 weeks before the Grey Knight's Codex drops, he suddenly passed away from pre-existing health issues.
Oh shit.
Yep, and we were like he would come in 2 or 3 times a week, hang out. He was a really cool dude. And I was like, "Hey man, you know what? Because they were his favorite army and he'll never get a chance to play them, I'm going to pick him up and play him for him. And I'm just going to try and run, the hottest that I possibly can." And that's pretty much why I've stuck with them the whole time. And I don't foresee myself dropping off of them. Even though they're not good right now, they had their heyday. Nephilim's not the best for them. I'm just gonna keep running it because I feel comfortable with them, and until I have a reason to hop off of them, there's no reason for me to stop.
Well, man, that's a really moving like tribute. It's crazy that you came in like a meteor too. I consider myself quite the noob, and I started during lockdowns. Like, I picked up the hobby, started painting, all that stuff. But you came in later, even later. Picked this up because of your close friend, and then you just haven't stopped. That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a good time. We actually one of my good friends now was a former GW manager, and he had a actual factual GW built table at his house because they were getting rid of some of the older tables, and he asked if we wanted him to donate it to the store. And I was like, yeah, of course, that'd be great. Instead of just, sliding 2 tables together and putting a mat on top, now we have at least an actual table. So then it just we ended up running a small 8-man RTT out of the store just to get some practice in. I'm a very big competitive gamer. I've played card games since '99, where I started with Pokemon, switched to Yu-Gi-Oh in '01 and played until 11, switched to Magic at 11, and play to date. So it's been a good time. There was a game called Force of Will that was there in the middle, around 2015 to 2017. So it's when I learned that I could just roll buckets of dice competitively, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm a
Yeah.
degenerate gambler. Let's just see if we can roll 4-ups the whole time.
I found out when I started playing Warhammer that I didn't have to go buy a whole bunch of dice because I've been playing so much Shadowrun for so long. I already had a bathtub full of D6s.
Yeah,
So I
I mean,
just yeehaw.
yep. I mean, even though I already owned Infinite like D6s, I was like, hey man, you know what? Now there's faction specific dice, and it just gives me
Oh
another reason to
man.
buy more dice.
I I I don't buy those things because I can't read them. Like
I I understand. Well, I mean, the only bad ones were the Necron ones and the Death Guard ones, the original dice where they had like little bubbles on them, or the Necrons had weird grooves. With the Necron dice, the 6 and the 1 had a symbol. It was like a coffin and a
yes,
skull, and I'm
a
like,
skull. Yeah, I'm like, which one's which?
I don't know. It's like because the first time I used them, I was like, oh man, and I was like, wait a minute, there's 2 symbols. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna assume the skull's bad, and my roll had like 6 skulls in it, and I was like, damn it.
Should have gone the other way.
I know,
All right.
but
Well, I want to talk to you more about your brew pub in a bit, but people are here to learn about Grey Knight. So let's get into that, shall we? With your list. Now, your list, um, is fascinating because there's a lot of people out there right now trying to like shake up the meta, see what's new, play with new stuff. Like lots of paladin stuff out right now because with armor of contempt and armored resilience, you can get to where you need like plasma to even move them off of their 2-up and stuff, which is great. But you went with like the bog standard with a couple of variations. Like this is the like post LVO, post first FAQ, 9th edition list. Like that's what this is. And we'll go over really quickly like what the only differences are that I saw. And then I want to talk to you about why you picked those tech choices, because obviously you picked them for a legitimate reason. But I'm just gonna run through it real quick. So we have a librarian, Gate of Infinity, and Sanctuary. He has nothing else. This is not the Mortal Wounds librarian. This is just a librarian who's there to cast 2 of your most important powers. You got a Tech Marine, Grandmaster, and a Nemesis Dreadknight, 3 strike squads, 3 interceptor squads for a total of 25 of them, and then 3 Dreadknights. One of them has no melee weapon at all. None of them have any teleporters. And then I think the only thing that you did differently on that we usually see from your Grand Masters, you went with the Great Hammer and not the Great Sword. Even though you have 5 extra points, you could have bought the sword. So let's just start at the top. Like when you were putting together this list, what were your thoughts?
So I was a big fan of the original 3 or 4 Dreadknight list
Me
in
too.
Nackmund and before that. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna start there. I've been running functionally the same list since Grey Knights came out because, thankfully they have limited options, so I don't have to think too hard. Uh with the librarian is actually that was a last minute oops, I can't find my second Tech Marine model. I guess I'm just gonna put in a librarian with Gate and Sanctuary. I actually learned about the mortal wound dealing one. Uh, I would say after round 1, somebody asked me, they're like, "Oh, how's your librarian kitted? Does it have purifying ritual? Smite and Vortex of Doom. So that way you can just potentially run the Gem of Intuku with it, and then you just kind of burst something down for, I think on average was 11 mortal wounds
Yeah.
for a librarian. And I'm like, man, had I known about that, that would have been really good. But I didn't know about it, so I just put Gate and Sanctuary on it because I was like, yeah, I wanna teleport dudes around, and I wanna give some dudes a 4-up whenever I just send a like a 5-man unit in the middle.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, the Tech Marine, you always have to have one dishing out +1 to hit. That's why I wanted 2 Tech Marines to dish out 2 +1s to hit. The +1 to hit is the reason that I decided to take the hammer on the Grandmaster, because there are things like the Contemptors or the Galatis or any form of Dreadnoughts that have the -1 to damage. And let me tell you, D6 damage, I've rolled a substantial amount of 1s and 2s. So if I can give my Grandmaster +1 to hit, having him re-hit on 2, so that hammer's
Mm.
dealing minimum 4 damage. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna take that because
So
if it's 2s regardless, it's still
yeah.
consistent, but it's gonna be a more consistent damage output.
So one caveat: the Tech Marines Awaken the Machine Spirit is ranged only. By the way,
Yeah,
it's
is it?
not melee.
Oh, well, I'm
Yeah.
bad.
No. It's I'm not like trying to be like, gotcha, I know more. I'm just saying like this game is so complicated.
True that.
And that's why I love it. Like I love that there's all these little rule intricacies and like play about how your army works and how you get those efficiencies. But I wanted to say it before someone in chat did, because they're that's a common thing. I made that same mistake when I started playing too. But I gotta say, you're right. Like when this guy winds up, and you can mitigate some of it because you brought Prescient Brethren, so you can always pop the strat, and then at least you're rerolling ones.
Yep.
So only 2 straight up miss. I have ganked some horrific stuff with a Grandmaster with the Great Hammer for sure. So.
Oh yeah, I think originally I had one with a sword, but that was
Mhm.
before NIDs became prevalent with those just big beefy bodies that I just
Yeah,
have to deal damage to somehow.
I feel
Uh,
you there.
yeah, it's like 3 units of strike squads. That's standard. I gotta have OBSEC somewhere, even though the Grandmaster does have the OBSEC bubble on them, so that way I can just run the 3 dreads as like a big ball and just kind of park them in the middle. Because the big thing with Grey Knights now, or it always has been, you actually want everyone to focus down the Dreadknights because they think that's what's gonna win them the game. But in reality, if they wipe out all of your plebs, then you don't have anything to hold.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's a big deal. That's a big thing that I think people playing Grey Knights maybe don't realize. Because the Dread Knights are a big threat, especially with Empiric Amplification up. But what's gonna hold you and win you objectives and score you points are gonna be all the infantry. And so when I went to LVO, I played Alex from Art of War, and he stomped me. And at the end, I was asking him, like, hey, man, like, what was your game plan? And he said, well, I knew if I could ignore your Dread Knights and kill your infantry, that I could just wear you down. And that's exactly what he did. So, like, turn 1 and 2, he was just killing all of my infantry. And then by turn 4, I just had Dread Knights left and I couldn't hold anything. So that's an excellent point. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, interceptors, they've got to be some of my favorite units in the game. They just
Yeah.
the the other day I was playing some practice games. I needed to play. I hadn't played against New Blood Angels yet, and I was like, all right, I just sent a 5-man interceptor unit into a squad of Sanguinary Guard, and I wiped the squad with a 5-man interceptor unit. And it's like,
Wow.
I don't see what the problem is here. These guys are great.
Yeah.
I mean, armor contempt is it's a heck of a drug. Uh, So I definitely wanted to be playing something that still had armor contempt, something I knew that could handle itself in melee, because I feel like a lot of the stuff in the meta now is just focused more towards. I feel like it's focused more towards melee. I just feel like I don't see a whole lot of shooting since Tau got nerfed. even Eldari. It's like, yeah, their boats are gonna shoot at you, but they're still just trying to wait for you to like come out so that way they can come after you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do we want to break apart that statement a little bit? I think you brought up some like fascinating points. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but like melee, you know, we're now playing an objective based game. I never played eighth, or I played like one game of like 500 points or whatever. But so eighth, there was basically just kill something, kill more than your opponent did, and then there was one more, right? Like, and it was always killing. It was just kill, kill, kill. There was no having to move up and hold in objective or whatever. But melee, like the charge phase and the fight phase, can give you so much extra movement. Like, I don't know if you've played Death Watch, or you know, there's the Dark Angels with their crazy bike chaplains, like getting plus 3-inch pile in, plus 3-inch consolidate, plus 2-inch charge. Like, you can get really fast melee units, and that's what the interceptors do. And if you can just toe in on an objective, right? Like, you can score points, or you can get into a table quarter for, you know, engage that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. And then also just melee hits, it slaps, man. Other than like Tau railguns or the volcano cannons on you know, a Bane blade, I can't really think of a whole lot of range weapons that have the same kind of crazy power as like thunder hammers in melee, you know.
Oh yeah, I definitely understand, and it's when it comes to just trying to spread yourself across the board, that's why I really like Grey Knights, because you have Shunt, you have Gate, and it's normally those I try and save for other things. So it's like Gate, I normally try and either get something uh out of harm's way is pretty much what I'm doing with Gate, that or I'm gating something to take a much tighter angle on shooting using one of the probably the Grandmaster, only because Sigil of Exigence lets him kind of get out of town when I put
Yeah.
him in that precarious spot. But the cool thing about interceptors is they all just have ethereal castigation. So psychic power goes off on a 6. They get to shoot as though the shooting phase and then make their normal 12-inch movement. So if you're trying to get those really easy engage points, that's 24 inches of movement right there off the bat.
Yeah.
And that really helps out now that they changed engage a little bit. So you need to be 6 inches off the center and, you know, battlefield edges like that. Just that way it's an easy, you know, changing from 2 to 3 points in a turn.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like let's get through I mean, let's get through your list, and then I want to talk to you about your general thoughts about secondaries. Without teleporters on your Dreadknights, I don't think you're doing teleport assault. But we can leap into that in a little bit. So I love interceptors too. I started playing, you know, with an 8th ed book, and I always thought, I was like, God, these guys have so much like potential. Got the, you know, they've got the awesome lore, but they were one wound at the time, and they didn't have the mastercrafted weapons. So definitely have the best glow up of the entire book, I think. But tell me about your Dreadknights.
Dreadknights, I decided not to play the teleporters on them because most of the times, you know, if I need to move them, that's what Gate's for. I wanted to force myself to uh, play a little bit tighter with them. So if you have teleporters on them, yes, it gives you the option to shunt them. It gives you the option to fall back, shoot, and charge with a CP, and that's really the only thing that I miss with them. Uh, the more things you give yourself to play sloppy in an army, in my opinion, uh, the the more decisions you have, the worse you might play. So if I know I can't move them out of harm's way, that means that I have to make my movements that much more precise. I have to take the best angle possible, and I just have to be sure that everything I do, I'm not doing it for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's kind of why I didn't take teleporters on them, because that's 30 points. Those 30 points could be, those 30 points actually turned into that unit of servitors. That's why they're at the top, because one, I'm a big fan of servitors. I get to let them sit on the home objective, and then they can even try and screen out if somebody's going to try and deep strike to take my home objective. Otherwise, they get to sit there, they get to raise a banner, and then I get to send everything forward. I don't have to leave a strike squad on there
Yeah.
unless it's for purifying purposes. But depending on how many objectives are on the game, I don't need to scan my own home one, because I'm still going to get uh, 4 to 5 points scanning everything else. So I just like sending everything up, leaving some stuff back, and then just kind of shooting it up when I need to.
Love it. Yeah, I like those little guys too. For 30 points, they can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sindri is asking, have you played against the Chaos Knight dog walker list? I assume that's all the war dogs. It's like 13 war dogs or whatever.
I haven't played against 13 war dogs. The most I played against was uh
It might be
was it
9. I don't know, but it's a
no,
lot.
yeah, no, I believe it was 10. There was the list had Abaddon, Cypher, and 10 dogs. Some number, I think it was like the vast majority were carnivores. Then you had like 2 executioners and maybe like 1 or 2 brigand. But there was a lot going on. And then the other list I played against was Abominant plus 8 carnivores, 2 executioners.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the best thing about those is uh, they don't have a melee invuln. So with power swords, I'm wounding on 5s, yes. But AP3 puts them at a 6-up save, and they're taking 2 apiece. So if they're herpetrax, I have to get 7 through. That's not the worst. And then that's also accompanied by smites or vortexes, anything like that to just try and help me keep them low. Heaven forbid if they take an infernal household where they're doing the demonic surge, they're dealing themselves mortals to help me out. That's actually how I won my first GT in Fort Atkinson. So I love Chaos Knights. They're probably the second thing I would play. I've got an army made. They're just not painted, but I don't think that they're that big of a deal for an army that can just send a 5-man up, deal a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
then maybe they wipe me, maybe they don't. There's always the chance that hitting on 3s, unless they're around Helm of the Dogs, they're not re-rolling the 1s. They might miss something. I might make a save. Maybe I have 1 dude left alive. Cool. Now that 1 interceptor is going to run 12 inches back, hold the objective, and then I'm going to move another 5-man up. And then I'm just going to try and wash, rinse, and repeat, because me losing a 5-man is not as crucial as you losing a war dog.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's an interesting take. I have not played any Chaos Knight list ever, like not in 9th or whatever. So that's a fantastic point. And their war dogs count as 5 obsec bodies, right?
They do.
So you could even like out obsec them pretty easily. And a strike squad, if you can get them in there with hammerhand, like rerolling all wounds, woo, doggy. That's pretty rad. All right.
Yeah, I love me some Hammerhand. That's probably my go-to psychic spell for strike squads. Especially if I'm ever going to send them in, that or on a normal Dreadknight. Rerolling the wound roll, especially if you're just fishing for 6s with Tide of Convergence, just to add those mortals in. Man, it really adds up.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's a good time to switch into secondaries and tides. So which one would you like to tackle first?
Uh, we'll go into Tide, since that'll probably be the easier segment of the two.
All right. Take it away.
So I would say with Tides, it depends on the army I'm playing against. Any
Of course.
melee-centric army, I'm just gonna run any melee army. I'm just gonna start in Convergence. Blood Angels, Chaos Marines. They're all gonna run at you, so you may as well be prepared. That way, if you interrupt, you maybe get to put some 6s on them. Otherwise, if you're going first, just having that extra 6 inches of range on all of your Dreadknight shooting weapons, that's always really good. Tide of Shadows. I mean, and Tide of Shadows and Convergence are pretty much the only 2 that I play in. Shadows is just so good. Just having anybody sitting inside a building. I'll actually try and bait opponents by putting some interceptors or even a strike squad unit in a building that they can see, only because I want them to be -1 to hit and maybe not focus on something else if I'm trying to wrap around. Uh, but -1 to hit, AOC, +1 to save from the light cover. It's real good. When you're
Yeah.
putting interceptors on a 1-up save or a 2-up save, and they don't have the AP to break through it, you're like, oh, well, this is cool. You just dedicated real shooting to these guys, and you may have put a wound on them, maybe killed a model, and it's great. I think the only other times I'd switch, I can't even remember the name of the other tides, to be honest with you. There's the one where your charge minimums are 1s and 2s equal 3s.
Tide of Celerity.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. But
You're
it's
welcome.
like other than that one, I think I've gone into that one once or twice over the course of my tournament series. Uh, but that's only if I'm like, man, I really, really want to make this charge. And it's normally when it's an 8. If it's a 9, I need a 6, and at worst a 1, 2, or a 3. So it's like, sure, yeah, if I'm dropping something in, especially if I take the teleport assault, maybe I go into the Tide of Celerity so that way I can just try and really bang out that charge. It works even better if you're running first to the fray on the Grandmaster, which is what I used to do, but I did drop it from this one only because I wanted to try and preserve the CP. But it's definitely, you're going to revolve around shadows and convergence the most.
Yeah. I did all the math, and I have like a little spreadsheet with a visual indicator. But if you come out of Deep Strike, you have a 9-inch charge, no modifiers. With a reroll, you have a 48% chance of actually making it in. With Celerity and a reroll, you're looking at 63%. So it's significantly better, but it's not betting odds better. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's not like you're landing and you have like a 90% chance of making it or whatever. So that's a great point. I found personally that like right around turn 3, once melee has been really joined, I sometimes go into Celerity, and it's mostly to get those reinforcements up there. Because like, if you charge and you fail, you're doing no damage at all.
That is true.
Where if you charge and you make it, you got another unit in there that's gonna do something, even if you might not have that extra oomph of the mortal wounds. But I want to take this moment before we jump into your secondaries. I just want to remind everybody we're doing this live, so you can ask us questions. So please jump in. It can be about Quinn's new tat, which I just saw on Facebook. It could be about my luxurious hair or my idiot animals, but just, we're doing this live for you guys, so.
Oh man, you have great hair, and I saw a cat in the background, so that cat's not an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh, this cat's so intelligent. I hate those damn things. I love them to death.
I have 3 cats and a dog, so. And if it were up to me, I'd have 1 more cat, but my wife said no.
I understand. I've got 1 cat, and my girlfriend's allergic, and then she's got 2
Oh,
dogs
no.
and 2 birds and a tortoise.
Nice. That's a good combo. That's a lot of animals. I like it.
It is. It's a good time.
Brandon is asking, do you have tips for going up against 1,000 Suns?
T-Suns. Man, I'm glad you asked, because at the RTT, I played T-Suns
Right.
in round 2, but it was the hero of the tournament playing the Tzangor Army of Renowned. But
Yeah.
one of my buddies that I dragged into the game with me, we played Magic together. We played all kinds of video games together over the last 7 years. T-Suns was the first army he picked up. So I think I've played anywhere between 40 to 50 games against various T-Sun builds.
Woo!
Yeah, it's a lot. But the best part about T-Suns is you have +1 to deny. A good T-Suns player, the only way that I think they're actually going to beat you, because not only do you have the +1 to deny at all times, you have the 5-up feel no pain to mortals at all times, is depending on how many cabal points they have, if they're using those cabal points correctly. If they're not making things undeniable, if they're not adding the extra wounds on to force the damage through your feel no pain, then chances are you're going to deny a solid amount of their powers, which means that they're not putting out any damage in that. They're probably going to be lacking in shooting unless they're just playing the blobs of terms that have maybe the Hellfire missile racks and some bolters. So you're not really worried about that with AOC. Melee, the 6 of one, half a dozen of another. What are they going to do? Come in with some Kapesh blades and just put all of their stuff right there in front of you so you can swarm them. With Nephilim now, if they don't leave 2 CP to interrupt, then you're just going to take over whatever they have. So it's just picking your denies. You always want to deny from the furthest unit back, so that way you're like, okay, you've got this dude right here in the middle of the field. Can my home objective strike squads tag that for a deny? That way you can just try and match their cast with each of your denies across the board. With that, it's if you ever get a chance to, if they're running Armon and you ever get a chance to just catch them out, or if you have the chance to just sling up the field and take out Armon, that's going to put the biggest dent in their Cabal points. That's going to take away 3 of their casts, 2 of their denies. And then after Armon's dead, they're not going to be able to dish out those really sexy bonuses to the Terminator squads.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that they're that big of a deal. Chances are they're going to use all of their spells to probably try and burst down a Dreadknight once per turn. But even then, 13 wounds with a 5-up, feel no pain to the mortals. And as we talked about earlier, you want them to focus those things down, because then you just get to run 25 12-inch movers with, power swords up the field and just kind of take out all of their rubrics, which happen to be 2 wounds apiece, and you deal 2 damage.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I actually haven't played against Thousand Suns yet either, but it sounds like that horrific grind that happens when you do a mirror match, and it's like, oh, we both have +1 to deny and a 5-up to mortals, so I guess our psychic phase will be 20 minutes of nothing happening. Right?
True.
It's like,
Well,
I'm gonna cast, you're gonna deny, I'm gonna cast, you're gonna deny, and then on my turn on your turn we're just gonna do it in reverse.
Yep, pretty much. But it's again in reverse. You now have 3 Dreadknights and a Grandmaster to just start pumping shots into them. Because I mean, any amount of damage you're able to put on them. Hell, my favorite gun in the entire game, Stormbolter. So even taking 20 Stormbolter shots if they're within 6 of the Grandmaster, so you're rerolling 1 on those 20 shots. Non-zero amount of times, man, you're gonna, volume of fire, they're gonna roll 1s at some point. Don't be discouraged if you roll 20 storm bolters. Let's say you hit with all 20. Let's say you wound with all 20. There's a chance that, they're just going to roll 2-ups. So you can't be discouraged by that. You still just have to do everything you can to pump in as many shots as you can. I don't recommend split firing if that's an option you have. I just like bursting down their important unit and then making them compensate for it.
Yeah. Stormbolter chip damage is not to be laughed at for sure. Like that big, 28 wound knight can still roll some really poor rolls. So
sure can. I actually round 1 I played against Custodes, and I used 20 Stormbolter shots and I killed 1 of his sword and boards. And I'm like, yeah, we take that all day.
Yeah, that's a 55-point model or something. Like like 60 points with the shield. I don't know. They're I last weekend I did a cast of local RTT, and it was the Custodes players stayed on the stream all 3 games, and then the finals was Custodes versus Custodes. That was some gnarly like, I'm looking at the board after deployment, I'm like, there are less than 30 models on this entire board.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
1 chaos squad has more, or 1 chaos cultist squad has like more models in it than this entire board does right now.
Yep. Yeah, I love running into those heavy elite armies, because it's like it's gonna be tough to kill something, but as soon as you do, any unit you take out, they're like, okay, well now I have to figure out some other way to hold this entire quarter of the board since I'm down a fourth of my army. And it's like, yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about those sweet secondaries, shall we? So when you made the list, obviously when you're list building, you're gonna tailor it towards 1 or 2 secondaries, and then you're gonna take another for you know, based on the army that you're going against or whatever. So, or the mission. So let's talk about it. Go for
Yeah. Purifying ritual. I think we can just end the
it.
stream. It's
Yeah.
it's about all you need. Purifying ritual on anything. You know, I think the worst mission to play it on is the scouring because you only have the 5 objectives. But even then, heaven forbid you scan all 3. That's going to give you 4 points. I still like that much more than psychic interrogation. There were several turns throughout the entire event where it's like, okay, I got 1 point. Okay, I got 2 points.
Mm.
But then as long as you're just playing the game of attrition better than your opponent, then those last 2 turns, let's say I only got 2 points and 2 points, but now I'm getting 4 points, 4 points, and 4 points. So
Yeah.
that capped me. Or if I go
Yep.
4, 5, and 5, I'm capped. And it's like it's just you, in my opinion, pick an army that has a free 15 secondary. It's going to be hard to find an army that has 2. So it's like if we have 1, Blood Angels has 1. Oh, fuck, they might have 2, but I really like I really like purifying ritual. It's just going off on a 5. The amount of people that are like, wait a minute, you can do it more than once on an objective if you fail. I'm like, yes, you can. As a matter of fact,
Yes.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I get these points. After that, I normally always pick engage, only because the 12-inch movement on those interceptors. We got 5 units of them. Ethereal castigation, propel them another 12. That's 24 inches. You've already covered no man's land, but you don't want to do that right out the gate because chances are now you're just stuck right on their deployment line and they're dead. But it's one of those really good things, especially against sisters, Quinns, any chaos running cultists. You're like, cool, I'm going to move up 12 inches. I'm going to get line of sight on these sisters or these cultists. And I'm going to put 20 shots into them, which is really going to hurt that unit because
Yeah.
I'm wounding you on 3s with storm bolters and you're probably saving on 6s, 5s at best. So I'm going to kill some number and then I'm going to move 12 more inches. And anybody that ever puts dense terrain or like a forest or a crater in their backline, I always try and pre-measure so that way I can get myself into that terrain with my 12-inch movement. So I need to make sure it's a 10, only because that's going to give that unit a little more resilience when it comes to them being shot at, or if somebody wants to try and come and get them, now they're suffering that -2 penalty. So
And
those are
you
always
can
just like,
set to defend, right?
sure can.
Yeah. That's a big thing. Like, I've gone to numerous RTTs now and LVO, and the amount of people that I've watched, like, just forget you can set to defend.
Yep.
I'm like, don't you? I mean, you're not Custodes, so don't you want +1 to hit? You know what I mean? Like, come on, come in. Like, if I live and swing back, you're just much more efficient. So,
Yep. But I mean, that's again, we talked about it earlier. This game has infinite rules. It's got book on top of
yeah,
book on top of book. So it's unless you are just unless you have a photographic memory, there's just going to be things that you forget, especially in the heat of the moment of an event, and then you're going to be like, "Oh no, I could have done this thing," and
yeah,
then you're just going to spiral down and be like, "I wonder what would have happened if I had done that."
yeah. Um, the I weighed the books that I have to carry with me to like my local events if I'm playing my Death Watch, Army of Renown, because I had to buy an entire book for 2 pages. Not even a joke. It's for 2 pages. It is just shy of 9 pounds of books. So like core rule book,
Lord.
the Space Marines book, the Death Watch book, and the Warzone book that has the Army of Renown rules. It's
Hmm.
4 books. It's not just shy of 9 pounds of books.
Yeah, that's why I like playing a not Space Marine army. I don't
Yeah,
want to carry the Space Marine Codex with me.
yeah, it's pretty gnarly. But all right, so we got purifying ritual, which I just want to circle back again and harp on it one more time. And I've done this before. Purifying ritual is not one that's like it feels bad when it doesn't start off strong, but it's that late game like comeuppance where you maybe score 1 point and 1 point like turn 1 and 2, but then on 3, 4, 5 you score like 4, 4, 4, and then you feel real good. You almost maxed it, right? So
Yep.
just want to point that out again for anybody who's maybe poo-pooing Purifying Ritual after the very slight nerf that we got. Because the only difference now is it went down from 5 points to 4, and then you can't cast if they're not on, or if like another unit is on the objective, right?
It took it from 6 points to 5 points. So instead of going 1,
That's right.
2, 4, 6, it's 1, 2, 4, 5.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to remember the caveat. I believe that you can still do it if somebody's on it. We might have to look it up. I can't remember the exact wording on it with the
Well,
change in Nephilim, but I honestly think it was just the point difference. Because I know they changed banners, where banners doesn't come down if somebody's on it. They have to control it, and then it comes down on your next turn.
Yeah, I have Waha PDF right now, but I just looked up Purifying Ritual, and they still have 6 points listed, so they obviously haven't updated this yet. But
That's fair. I don't have my Nephilim book on hand. Otherwise, I'd check it out. If anybody in chat has that Nephilim book, now's time to come through.
Oh yeah, it's it's right there.
Oh, it's so close. Don't worry, that's a lot of work. Oh, look at you, the man.
And it's still in the wrapper. This is how much I've played Nephilim, guys. It's summer, so I've been like out doing stuff. I haven't played like almost any Warhammer at all the last probably, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months.
I understand.
Yeah. While I'm crawling into this book, Dominic has a question about running sword bearers. Is the strat and the warlord trait of Prescient Brethren much better than the psychic power with that many Dreadknights?
Ooh, Dominic, that's a great question. And the only reason I'm playing Prescient Brotherhood is because boy, Nephilim really screwed my CP. Originally, I was starting with anywhere between 8 to 10 in Knockman, but I was spending a whole bunch of CP in the first 2 turns with 3d6 cast on a Grandmaster, 2 cast on a Grandmaster, extending the range of that Grandmaster by 6 inches, so that way I could Vortex at 18 inches, Empiric Amplification at 18 inches. But now, since we're starting at 2, yes, we go up 1 on each player's turn, but getting that extra 1 allows you to do a little bit more. So that's why I gave it to the Tech Marine, because he's either just warp shaping once in a game. If for some reason I got to do it twice, sure. But other than that, the other 4 turns, he's going to gain me a CP on a 5-up at least. Then if I start a melee matchup where I'm in convergence, then boom, now it's turns 1 through 5. That's potentially 5 more CP. With that, that's 2. That's up to 2 shunts. That's 2 more. That's up to 2 more true silver armors. So it's all of those things where it's would I like my Dreadknights to have +1 to wound? I would, but that's only against larger toughness armies at the moment. So when I'm up against, I think the toughest thing I went up against all weekend was a T9 Land Raider, and it's like, man, would I have liked my shots to wound on 4s instead of 5s? I sure would have, but with Empiric Amplification and sending all 4 of those things firing into that Land Raider, we were able to pop it because it's 3 damage a pop on the big shots, 2 damage a pop on the little shots, rerolling 1s while they're within 6 of that Grandmaster. So it still gets me there. I miss the extra explosiveness, but I really like having the extra CP. And the Prescient Brotherhood stratagem is nothing to really, or the Prescient Brotherhood psychic power is nothing to scoff at. That actually kept an Abaddon locked down for 2 full turns, because when that Land Raider exploded, he dealt 3 mortal wounds to his own Abaddon, and I was like, hot. That's a lot less work I got to do. And I
Yeah.
was like, we're gonna fatal precog that thing, and he's like, oh, And then he's like, all right, I'm going to move. And I was like, are you sure you want to move? He's like, no. I was like, okay. So it's just little things like that where it's like, man, if you're against Custodes and you target Trajan or that Shield Bike Captain, if you target Abaddon, if you target anything that you know will be problematic, whenever they move, they have a 50% chance of taking mortals. If they charge, 50% chance of taking mortals. I really like that. I just call it the lockdown strategy or the lockdown power because it's people are really scared to move through it, even though chances are they're going to survive and whatever they charge is going to kill me. Half of the game to me is all about mind games, so that's just a really good one that can also pan out in my favor.
So, fatal precognition for anybody listening that doesn't remember what it is because we don't see it used very often. It's a warp charge value of 5. If mana infested, select one enemy unit within 12 inches until the start of your next psychic phase. Each time that unit makes a move, advances, fall back, or charges, you roll a d6 on 4 to 5. It's d3 mortal wounds on a 6. It's a flat 3. So pretty good. If you can lock down something that you know is probably gonna like advance and charge or whatever, it's pretty good.
Yep.
We have another question. Have you gone against Necrons since their latest changes in the Nephilim pack? And speaking of which, just really quickly, you are right. It does not say that the objective for purifying a ritual has to have no enemy units on it. It just looks like it was nerfed to be 1 fewer victory point if you cast on 4 or more. So.
Yep. That's a great question about Necrons. I have Necrons were my first actual love, and I reordered a whole bunch of stuff for Necrons because I want to put them together. I'm a really big fan of 27 Scarabs that potentially have a 5-up invuln from a Chronomancer. Even though that's not the way you want to play them, but boy, it's a lot of fun. Right now, the way that they play them, Silent King, really good, really annoying. Scorpex, without having an invuln, they go down pretty quick. Chances of them reanimating Scorpex, not the greatest since they're 3 wounds and they need 3 5s or 6s. So if you take out 2 of them out of the, depending on how many they have, so if they have all 5, chances of me wiping out all 5 pretty low because they're 3 wounds apiece. Most of the times I do it, I'll send in a Dreadknight or a 5-man interceptor. I'm pretty good at killing on average about 2.5 to 3 of them. They might bring back 1 that is annoying. Then they're going to do some damage. They're still not the fastest. There's a couple of builds that still play Wraiths. Wraiths are good, but their Wraiths are really contingent on my will be done to be able to hit on a better number. Otherwise, their averages are pretty low. I've seen a lot of Necron lists that are, I think we had one a couple of weeks ago that actually had a perfect 600-point game. And when I'm looking at the list, I'm like, that's interesting. Because most of the times it looks like they're castling with a Silent King, and then they're sending Scorpex, Wraiths, and maybe some Tomb Blades up. Grey Knights, in my opinion, with the mortal wounds and their melee, have a very solid counterpunch. Tomb Blades are pretty much just going to be there for them to score engage or pressure your deployment zone. You don't really have to worry too much about that. If that happens and they put stuff really close to your deployment, and they're trying to harass you, I let the things that would generally sit in my deployment zone handle it because they're still right there. They get to stay there. Maybe you chain a 5-man strike squad so that way you get in there. Tomb Blades are fairly soft. You use 3 strike squads, chain the other 2 back. You're still on the objective. You smite something or you hammer hand, and then you're probably going to wipe out the majority, if not all, of those Tomb Blades. Scorpex and everything else. You know, if you rush them first, you're probably gonna take out the majority of them on your first attack, so they won't be able to kill you all the way down and finish off your squad. But with Necrons, they do start with a lot of CP. A lot of them are starting with 4 or 5, so they can just interrupt. So I only recommend going in with 1, max 2 units at a time to punch, because if you go in with more than 1, they're going to interrupt, and depending on what they interrupt with, they're going to wipe out whatever you charged with. So it's one of those really cool games of combat attrition where it's you send in one, you really hope to deal as much damage as possible to that unit, so that way it hinders them. Then they have to bring something to the unit that you brought in, or maybe they're just going to shoot at it. If they shoot at it with the Silent King, because that's going to be their best shooting, cool. That means his shooting did not go into a Dreadknight. Fantastic. He put it into a pleb squad. If he moves something up to attack that pleb squad, that's perfectly fine. That's what you had planned on. But depending on where that's located, that means that you have another squad waiting right there to counterpunch their counterpunch. And since you charged first, that put you up one unit on theirs. Then they wiped out your first unit. Now your second wipes out their second. So you're trying to stay one up on them the whole time while making sure to get off those purifies, those banners. And then with the Silent King, it's one of those things where it feels real bad to leave him alive, but if you kill everything else around him, he can't do much. So it's like, yeah, he's probably going to score them the free 15 with the every time my character kills a unit, I get a bunch of points. That's perfectly fine. If you're giving them a free 15, you're matching them with Purify on a free 15. If they take banners, you're going to match them on banners. And then it's just cool. Who's going to hold primary better and whose third secondary is going to be better. But I honestly think that we have the edge with Mortal Wounds from Vortex of Doom and Smite. We have consistency with Hammer Hand. And as long as you keep all those Dreadknights together with that Grandmaster, you're going to have the reroll ones. That Tech Marine's going to give them that +1 to hit. And then when that Grandmaster charges into that Silent King, that Thunderhammer, or not Thunderhammer, but that Great Hammer is going to do a lot of damage because it's just minimum 4 apiece with 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, Prescient Brotherhood strat, reroll 1s.
And one's to wound.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. So there's an entire battle plan against any Necrons that aren't running like warrior blobs. And if they are, I
Warrior
guess.
blobs, it's just Stormbolter, Stormbolter, Stormbolter.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like you've done this before.
Once or twice.
Corey is asking, have you tried Blades of Victory for the pregame movement?
I have not. I've thought about it only because Necron's pregame, their custom dynasty with the pregame 6-inch spoiled me with that. But I really like again Prescient Brotherhood CP with the pregame movement. The pregame movement is almost the exact same to me as just taking Foretelling of Locust, so I get the 3 core redeploy. Because with redeploys, all you're doing is you're deploying everything or what I do is I deploy everything except 3 things safe. Those 3 things I deploy very greedily. Because if I go first, now I take 3 more units and deploy them greedily. So now
Right.
I just have 6 units that are right there in the open on the front line, unhindered by terrain, and it's a straight shot with movement to do whatever I want to do. If I go second and it looks like they're going to be able to tag those 3 things that I deployed greedily, I now redeploy them safely. So it was the same thing that I did when I played Necrons. With the pregame 6-inch movement, I actually deployed everything greedy. Because if you go first, everything is 6 inches forward, and then you got the +1 inch to move from your whatever the command protocol is. And it's like, cool, now everything's just 6 inches up. You're going to start movement phase. Now everything is minimum 7 inches up again.
Yeah.
Pre-games are good, but I think redeploys are equally as good because it's costing me points. It's not costing me the potential of up to 5 CP by switching chapters.
So there you go. It's hard to argue with CP generation, especially in the times of Nephilim. I mean, it was good when the book hit. It's even better now. So pressing it rather than really holding it down with the with the getting half again more CP than you were prior. So
Yep.
all right.
I think we still have to touch on the third secondary because we
Oh
talked
yes,
about
that's right.
purifying, then we talked about engage. So I just want to bang out that third one real quick because the third one is actually the hardest. I'm pretty much always taking purify. I'm almost always taking engage, but then what? Then it comes down to either banners or if it's not banners, it's really hard. A lot of times, I think I ended up taking no prisoners twice, so that worked out. Things like Tau, Chaos Space Marines, Sisters. A lot of these things are giving up easily 10 points before bonus, and then once you hit 10, it's +2, so you got 12. 12 is people say 9 is the minimum you're looking for on secondaries. On average, I actually think you want to shoot for 12s. In a perfect world, you want to pick everything that could cap at 15s, but you want to be realistic. It's like, do I want to pick something that could cap at 15 and then I only get like 8? Or do I want to pick something like banners or prisoners that'll be much easier to realistically get 10 plus on? Banners scoring twice at the end of round 5 came in real clutch for one of the games where it's like I had my 2 banners and then I was at the bottom of 5 and then I was able to I was able to shunt somebody and then just move really fast with interceptors, plant a banner, and then at the end of the turn, I get 2 more points for those 2 new banners that are raised on top of the 2 that I already had. So that
Gotcha.
was an easy 4. I'm a big fan of banners, especially if you think you're going to be able to get into their area, keep them off their objectives. But if you're doing that, you're probably winning on primary. But banners is normally going to be a consistent, 10 in my opinion, because you don't score it on turn 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5 is 8. You score 2 more again at the end, that's 10. That's already 1 more than the 9 that people tell you to look out for. No prisoners you want to take pretty much any time they give up 10 or more points. Because if you give up 10 or more points, chances are those units are going to be pretty not durable. They'll be pretty squishy. So it shouldn't be too hard for you to rack up on them. If it's not banners or it's not prisoners, that's tough. If you're playing a heavier teleporty list with teleporters, you could probably do these. Since Nephilim lets us take more than one of our own house strats, you probably take teleport assault.
Yeah.
That's really good because then you can choose to keep something in the air, so that way when it comes down, you do a thing. It triggers off gate, it triggers off shunt. So that's not bad. There was actually one instance where I had the Grandmaster out in the open. They chose to shoot at him, and I once per game moved him out of the way, and I moved him right near a unit that he could have a 9-inch charge on, but that unit had +1 to charge. So I was like, I'm thinking, I took teleport assault. I can pop a 3-up invuln, and then I can just move him. They're going to charge him because they think they'll be able to wipe him out. But having a 66% chance to save on 2 damage attacks, he's getting 16 attacks. He's wounding me, or he's hitting on 3s. He's got full rerolls to hit, so it's like he's going to hit with 13, 14 of them. But then he's wounding me on 5s because he's only strength 5, and he doesn't have full wound rerolls on the wound. So then you just kind of bait him in. They charge you, and then your Grandmaster, whether you have sword or hammer, he's going to be able to take out a solid number of those things, and a non-0% chance that you just take out the squad, and then you've scored teleport assault on their turn. So then that
Huh.
helps when it goes into your turn. Then you just move them up, do it again.
Wow. Is that really? Is that part of the? That's. I mean, that's an awesome combo. I wonder though. It wouldn't surprise me, but I haven't seen it written down or anything. Does the Sigil of Exigence movement count as
It does. It is considered a
teleport
teleport
assault?
strike. Yep.
Oh, cool. Oh, it's okay. It's a teleport strike. Got it. All right.
Yeah. It's real good.
That's really cool. That's a hilarious like way to get 3 points in their turn. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just little things like that it's like, if you know you have to deal with something, but maybe you can't get to it, you just bait them out by shooting him. So that way you're like, cool, now I get this free 24-inch movement across the board. So that way I can be near your problematic unit. If your problematic unit thinks that it can wipe out my Grandmaster, I'm going to roll the dice and give you a chance. Because like you're going to put some damage on it. But then it's like, especially if you plan around it, then you have so it's like, let's say that the Grandmaster is originally here and your Tech Marine is over here. You can plan for the Grandmaster to move to the problematic unit where you positioned your Tech Marine. So at the end of the movement phase on your turn, the Tech Marine is moved up to heal that Grandmaster for flat 3. So it put him even further behind, and you scored 3 points on their turn.
Yeah, and that's actually a point about your list that I saw and then didn't bring up, that you have the Aethermatic Conduit relic on the Tech Marine, so he heals for flat 3, not D3. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, healing for flat 3 is really good when a lot of your bracket increments are based around that 3. So it's like you go, was it 1 to 4, 5 to 7, and then 8 to 13. So if you're at 5, then you're like, cool, I'm at 8. That's top bracket. If I'm at 4, now I'm at 7. That's middle bracket. And it's like, man, that's really good. If you're at 2, now you're at 5. That's middle bracket. So it's all of
yeah,
those incremental, like extra number of attacks, extra weapon or extra ballistic skill. Thankfully, the weapon skills don't bracket, which is nice.
yeah. I love that you're using you're like backing all of this up with like solid math. Like you clearly thought this all through, which is awesome.
Yeah, I have to allocate my brain space somewhere, and I choose to make it games.
Works for me. I'm the same way. So, uh, shall we jump into your matchups? It's been we've already been talking for 1 hour, and we've just been answering questions and talking about your list. Hi, Ivar. Yes, I know.
No.
Here, buddy. No. Uh, he wants to play. um, so your first matchup was against Custodes. What do you remember what his list was specifically?
Oh, I sure do, because I was very excited to play it. It was 3 grav attacks, 6 dreadnoughts, a Trajan, a shield bike captain, and a unit of 3 sword boards.
So like 11 models.
Yeah, put 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11, 12 models, or
Oh,
12 units. Uh, plus 2, 14 models.
yeah.
Yep.
That sounds like Custodes.
It was. I believe that he took first turn. Uh, the only shots he had on anything was with a grav attack that he moved 14 to the back corner of his board. Let me see. Let me pull up my notes that I had written down when I made my battle report the other day, just so that way I
Uh,
can.
uh,
Uh, round 1. Yep, it was abandoned sanctuaries, and
okay.
I took purifying ritual, engage, and banners. Uh, yeah. So against an army like this, it's a massive snowball effect. When you kill one thing, when they only have 14, again, it's going to hinder them. It's one of those real elite armies. His turn 1, his grav attack killed 2 interceptor models. Okay. My turn 1, I killed a dreadnought, a unit of sword and boards, and a shield bike captain.
What shield
Yeah.
host was he? Also,
Uh,
that's an amazing ROI, they might call that. I'm
oh,
gonna go
yep.
ahead and pull up Wahapedia for everybody to see, so you can see the abandoned sanctuary map as we're talking about it. But
Yep. So you see here, so I took engage because it's an easy Dawn of War deployment. Uh, I'm going to be able to just cross that line in a matter of about 2 turns. So turn 1, I'm not going to take anything on it because I'm pretty much just moving up to tag. I tagged the left objective and the center objective. He had his sword and boards on the right objective. He also took banners. He raised banners on his home and the right objective. I raised banners on my home, the left objective, and the center objective. So that puts me at 3 banners to his 2. So even if we're just racing on banners, I've got him by 1 point. I'm going to end up capping it. He's going to get 10. He had parked he went first. He had parked a Dreadknight, or a Dreadnought, his shield bike captain, and his sword and boards right around that right objective towards his on his side of the halfway line. He had a grav attack on the back left corner, the middle, and the back right corner, and then he had moved a dreadnought up to close to the left objective, right around where it says no man's land, but a little more towards the objective. So it was just he tried to shoot the grandmaster because I had positioned him in between, just right in an open line of sight, right on the edge of my deployment zone. I had put my big L on the center objective, so that way I knew when he targeted it, I could move it behind that center piece of terrain, and then he has no line of sight, and that gave me a free about 12-inch movement. So now on my next turn, when the Grandmaster moves 9, I go right around that big L, and now I'm within charge range of both a Dreadnought and a Shield Bike Captain. So then we just smited it, Empiric Amplificationed, because we were able to get the Grandmaster to where the Shield Bike Captain was the closest and visible, so we didn't have to worry about Lookout Sir. Then the 5-man Interceptors that I moved up to that right objective took out one sword and board with the Storm Bolters. They charged in, wiped them out, and I actually, when I charged in, I charged the Grandmaster into the Shield Bike Captain, and I charged the Sword and Board into, or I charged Interceptors in the Sword and Board, and then I had 2 units of Interceptors that I charged into the Dreadnought on the left side. Now, the reason I did this is because he started at 1 CP. He went up to 2 CP on his turn. He went up to 3 CP on my turn, but on his turn, he re-rolled something. And on my turn, he re-rolled something.
So now he
This
can't interrupt.
Correct. Well, Custodes have the cool thing where they can interrupt if they're touching an objective for 1 CP. But
Okay.
he didn't have anything. The only thing he had touching an objective was the sword and boards. So since he didn't have 2 CP, I actually started with the 5-man interceptor squad that I was able to string out just a bit, but stay in engagement range with all. So they're within 6 of the Grandmaster. So they're rerolling 1s. So I took out the sword and boards so he couldn't 1 CP interrupt and wipe out my interceptors.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just got free reign where the Grandmaster came in and successfully wounded with 2 of the hammer attacks. That on top of the damage I did with Smite, I killed him with Xaxes. Then the 10 interceptors that went into the Dreadnought with Tide of Convergence, I was able to get enough 6s, and he didn't roll enough 4-up Feel No Pains to those mortals, where I was able to actually just burst down that thing between 40 Stormbolter shots and 32 interceptor attacks with mortal 6s, where I was able to take it out for Xaxes.
Wow.
And then
It
it
took
was
all that to just do the exact number of wounds required to actually draw it. That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah, that's why it's like having -1 to damage characteristics when everything in your army is 2 damage. Really good. So that's why
Yeah.
you have to overcommit. But you only
Gotcha.
want to overcommit to the things that are going to be a little bit tougher to kill, but you don't want to do it unless you are sure that it's not going to come back and bite you in the ass. Because if I don't kill that Dreadnought and that Goliath gets to attack any number of those things, I'm just going to lose a 5-man.
Yeah.
And then he's probably going to end up holding that because I've already committed 2 of my 5 units to that objective. I've got 2 that are on the center, 1 that's on the right. So I'm not going to be able to get anything over there too terribly fast since it's 18-inch movement.
Yeah.
Or
Those
18 inches to get. Yeah, it's pretty far. But it
those
worked out.
so those dreadnoughts have 9 wounds, right?
Yep.
And that means they don't bracket. So
Correct.
if you leave it alive with 1 wound, it will clap back and it will like bust your teeth in.
Oh,
Yeah.
it sure will, especially when they're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s.
Yeah. I don't know if you're watching chat, but there is a question about teleport assault and how it ties in with Sigil of Exigence. I was gonna look into this after the stream, but I don't see in the relic description that it counts as a teleport assault, but it's an interesting question.
The way that it was told to me, because I had the same question. I asked a series of people and then a couple of judges, is that Grey Knights, anything that picks them up and redeploys them is
Mhm.
considered a teleport ability, some form of teleport strike. Now, if teleport assault does in fact just say deep strike, shunt, or gate, then LD
It
is 100% correct. I was told that it was anything that resets it up on the board via a teleport ability, whether it be deep strike,
yeah.
shunt, gate, or the sigil, because sigil is also a teleport ability. But again, there's so many things that are written that people still don't know how it works. So there's a solid chance that is correct. I'm just going based off of how I was told it worked, which is why I did it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like again, like you mentioned, it's rules upon like rules, and a lot to remember, especially when you consider the fact that you have to know all your, well, not have to know all, but you need to know some amount of your opponent's rules as well. That this kicks into some minutia, but it does say using the it has three very specific requirements. And I don't see Sigil of Exigence on the list, and if you look up the sigil, it doesn't include the like teleport assault keyword, but it sounds like you did all your work. You talked to some TOs, they allowed it, so at least in that instance, you know, your butt is completely covered. But it does
I
bring
didn't
up
use
an
it
interesting point.
Yeah, I didn't use it in this event. That was just I had that question at one of the last events that I saw, and I was like, I'm gonna ask on this because that's one of those things that it's like you definitely want to know, because if it does
Yeah,
work that way, then you can utilize it, to your advantage.
yeah.
But if it doesn't, then that's just one of those things where maybe I just reach out to like Siegler, maybe he can reach out to GW and be like, hey, fix this. But it's who
Yeah.
knows? That probably won't happen.
Just for the record, like I don't want this to seem like it's some kind of gotcha thing, because I know we talked about the like Tech Marine earlier, and now we have questions about this. I want to make sure that you don't feel like this is a hostile interview or something.
Oh,
I'm not
no,
trying to be that way.
you're perfectly fine. Again, I've been playing this game just over a year.
Yeah,
There's so much I don't know, and it's all a learning process. But every event I go to, I have faith enough in everyone that I play. Like no one wants to lose. So if
yeah,
I'm doing something that seems too good, chances are my opponent's going to be like, I don't think that's how that works, and that's when we call a judge over, and then we ask them to look up something. But when it comes to like the comprehensive rules or oracle text of something, not everything in Warhammer is completely spelled out like to the T. So
nope.
there's a lot of things that are up for interpretation, and
That's accurate.
it depends on who you're asking and how they interpret it and what answer they give you.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a definitely not a simulation game where the computer already knows what the rules are. Our little fatty computers in our heads are the ones that have to actually remember this stuff. So,
Yep. But as for match one, turn one I took out those things. Turn two, I took out what did I take? Turn two I took out two more dreads, and
wow.
then it just kept folding. I think I ended the game with 3 Dreadknights alive. He killed 1 and 2 units of interceptors, and I believe that's all he killed that game.
Wow. So you lost less than like, or just over like 500 points.
Yeah, it's 180, or the Grandmaster, or no, the Grandmaster lived. The Dreadknight was 185 plus
Yeah.
2 plus functionally a 10-man interceptor squad.
So yeah,
And I ended
little
up winning
little
that
under
one.
600 points.
Yep, we ended up taking that one 94-50.
Woo. What was your third against him? Your third
Ritual, engage, and banners.
Okay. That's right. You did the ritual and banners combo, which I'm always so hesitant to do. But I should probably put the banners up first and then worry about purifying later. Right?
Oh well, that's why I send two units to each objective. So that way it's just ritual banner, ritual banner, ritual banner.
Oh, so you do them both all on turn one. Huh.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because it's depending on the army. If they're not a very fast moving army, we are a fairly fast moving army, so we're able to get two things there, do it, and then it might take them 2 turns to be able to get to you to do anything about it. So then in those 2 turns, you leave one on there to purify, and then you take the second ones and you harass them with it.
Gotcha. Okay. We got another question here. When you deploy, do you keep your NDKs in like a death ball, being buffed by the Tech Marine, or do you spread them out?
What I will do is uh, I'll keep 2 near the Grandmaster at all times, along with the Tech Marine. So I keep 3 total in a ball with the Tech Marine, and then I take the 4th and I put him off, like somewhere off to the side. Only because when you take one and put it off to the side on a deployment, your opponent's going to look at it and be like, "What's he doing with that? Do I need to put something there to compensate for him putting it there?" And then it depends on who goes first. If you go first and you put something there to maybe protect from me moving him up, I just redeploy him with the death ball. If you don't, then I can either leave him there because I put him there for a reason. He's either in a advantageous position, so that way I just move up, take an angle on something that you may not have saw when you deployed, or I just completely shift him to somewhere else on the board, just throwing off whatever mental pregame decisions you would put together. So long story short, I normally keep a Grandmaster and 2 together with a Tech Marine, take the 4th win, then kind of play some tricksy games with them.
Gotcha. And then I did miss Dominic's other question here. Earlier we were talking about getting those like rerolls for consistency. He says he's thought about bringing a Vendread or a normal Dread, and then using the strat for a reroll once to wound aura. How do you feel about taking a 145 point unit, maybe with some like multi-melta who is there to just do reroll ones to wound?
I like it. The first tournament I ever played Grey Knights in was Dragonfall of last year, and I took a Grandmaster, 2 Dreadknights, and a Venerable Dread.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Dread because I believe it has the smokescreen keyword, so you can make it -1 to be hit. You could reroll the ones. I think I had him with I can't remember what weapons I had on him, but I remember the matchup that he did the most work was against pre-nerfed orcs when they were on the freebooters, where they just get infinite, +1 to hits, and now they're hitting on 3s instead of 5s while rolling buckets of dice. But I was able to pop one of their planes on turn 1 with that Venerable, and then
Wow.
another plane on turn 2 with that Venerable. I
Nice.
liked it, but it did not pull in. It didn't pull its own weight over the course of the event. And for that many points, I'd rather upgrade something and then just put in just put in like maybe another 5-man interceptor squad because they were pre-nerfed at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, it's fine. Grey Knights to me were not a shooting army, so diverting from anything that's not shooting to add in some shooting like that. It's all personal preferences. That's still, we'll talk about it, but that's another one of the reasons that it's like I don't really take the Paladins or the Terminators. I like having a lot of things on board. I played I played what, a 5-man Paladin when I went to Motor City Mayhem, and they were the worst unit in my army. They sat there. I think I made one charge with them because I just leave them in the center of the board. But people were just like, "Cool, you
Ignore
can
them.
have, yeah, you can
Yeah.
have the center. I'm going to take everything else around it." And then
Yep.
what? Then they sit there, and it's like, "Hey, they're still lose," or I was winning from the start, so it didn't matter what they did.
Yeah.
Uh,
Interesting.
they yeah, they don't move very fast. I mean, they hit fairly hard, but with Armor Contempt, maybe Sanctuary to give something a 4-up, Tide of Shadows, just being in cover, playing the terrain to your ability. It's one of those things where they're a safe pick. They're good if they happen to get into combat. But what really turned me off of them was Motor City Mayhem round 3 Jack Harpster, Art of War. He
Yep.
he was on Sisters. He got to go first. He pregame moved his Rhino 12 inches to the center of the Scouring. Then on his turn, he put out 7 Repentia, and then he just charged my Paladins with those Repentia.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bloody Rose, he picked up 4 of my 5 Paladins with those Repentia. And I was like, well, that's not worth it. I don't want to. I pretty much never want to have that many points dedicated to something that squishy ever again. And that's just
Gotcha.
kind of that's been my thought process on them ever since.
Yeah, I mean that was turn 1, right? So you
Yep.
hadn't had any chance to like buff.
Nope.
That's that's a big thing. Back when ninth first hit, and before the terrain rules, like people had figured that out, we were playing on boards, and I think this is in general. We meaning not just my local group, but like we as a community, we were playing. Except maybe Australia because they love too much terrain. Anyway, um, we were playing on what we would now think of as pretty sparse boards.
Sure.
And like getting first turn against Grey Knights, especially with an 8th Ed Codex, still was huge because I had none of my buffs up. I didn't have Sanctuary up. I didn't have armor resilience. I didn't have any defensive stuff up. And so if you could clap into me strong turn 1, you could wipe out a quarter or a third of my army.
Yep.
And then, on my turn 1, I'm now playing, like 1,700 points versus, or 1,500 points versus 2,000, which sucks. So.
It sure does. Yeah, playing down. I played against Blood Angels last week, and the dude had a drop pod with a unit of devs in it. And he's like, cool, I'm going to go first. I'm going to drop this drop pod. Devs are going to come out, and they're going to blow one of those Dreadknights off the board.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm down. You shot up 20 points. I think his devs were 165. They took out 185. And it was like, man, that was rough. Playing from behind is that's one of the things that whenever I try and actually test Warhammer, one of the things I do is I'll do sessions of different things. So I really love player-based terrain. So what I'll do is I'll roll up a mission. I'll have one of my testing buddies with me, and then we'll set up terrain. We'll look at it based on like different matchup scenarios. Be like, what do we think? And then we scrub the table and we do it again. And then we scrub the table and we do it again. And then we re-roll the mission. We set it up, scrub it, do it again. So it's just getting those things down, because terrain is either going to make or break your game, even if the matchup is unfavorable. If you make your terrain better than your opponent's terrain, and you know how your army is supposed to work, that's gonna make it nearly a 50-50 matchup, barring any dice rolls. You can always run hot. Your opponent's gonna be mad. Your opponent can run hot. You're gonna be mad.
It's a dice game. Like, what are you gonna do, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. Most of the time, it isn't. It's right in the middle. Yeah. Very cool.
Let's see. We'll work on the. Oh,
yeah. Let's go into round 2. This is the like MVP of the whole tournament, even though he didn't win. This is the Tzangor Army of Renown, which is effectively Tzangor carpet. It's like Gaunt carpet, but with Tzangors. And then I want to talk to you at the end.
Sure.
About like how you might change up your list. But then especially player place terrain here in the Portland area, the Pacific Northwest is really big. I don't think there are any tournaments not using it now, because it's incredible, and really understanding it is pivotal to like eking out wins. So, but let's do the Tzangor carpet first.
All right, so round 2, Tzangor Army Renowned. We're playing Secure Mission Artifacts. And then for Secondaries, we took no prisoners because he gave up all of it. We took a Purifying Ritual, and then Engage. His list, he had 2 Sorcerers, 3 Exalted Sorcerer, 5x20 Tzangors. 100 Tzangors. Guys, it was so cool to look at. I felt really bad that he had to move all of those things, but oh well. Then it looks like he has 2 Shamans. He has 4 Chaos Spawn, 2 Tzangor Enlightened, and 2 Mutilith Vortex Beast. So it's in my notes here. I wrote, opponent ran 100 Tzangors. My Stormbolters were locked and loaded. That's MVP of the game, Stormbolters, putting those Tzangors on, I believe it was like 5-ups. I took turn 1, which was definitely super beneficial for me, because starting in Tide of Convergence, giving my Dreads 30-inch range instead of 24, allowing to take angles on those blobs at 20 before he had a chance to give them a 4-up invuln, or potentially any feel no pains if he could. Really good for me. I actually blew up a 20-man on turn 1 and a beast on turn 1. I think I could have taken out 2 beasts on turn 1, but I failed a 7-inch charge and then failed the reroll of that 7-inch charge.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh no, that's not good. But just like we talked about earlier against T-Sun's builds, he didn't have +1 to cast, but I had +1 to deny, and he was not utilizing his Cabal points to the best of his ability. So he's like, I rolled a 7. I'm like, cool. I rolled a 7 on die. +1 is 8. He's like, I rolled a 6. I'm like, I rolled a 9. So he had 4 pistols in the whole army, and that was his shooting. So I wasn't concerned about any shooting. I got to just leave stuff pretty much wherever I wanted it. silencers and storm bolters, just picking up blobs on blobs of Tzangors. After I blew up one blob, he had one of his sorcerers just out in the open, and then I used the Dreadknight and sent all 6 silencers into, or all 6 side cannons into it, so it killed that character. So it cut him down off of I think 2 more Cabal points going into his turn, and I'm like, man, this is great. And then it just kind of folded. But it's like, weirdly enough, because of how much stuff I had to churn through, I scored the least amount of points and gave up
Yeah.
the most points in this matchup, even though it felt pretty unlosable. I ended up getting there 89 to 63. But some of the things, this opponent, he had to learn something the hard way, where I'm not sure if it's an
That's the
oversight
best
in the.
way to learn, man. That's the only way I learn it all.
Yep. I'm not sure if it's an oversight in wording, but apparently how denies work is if one of my units has 1 deny, so everyone on my army has 1 deny, denying a psychic action does not take up your psychic power deny. So
What?
yeah, yep. We made sure to look up all the FAQs, everything, core book. It's even in the core book. It doesn't say that it uses it, but it says that something about it. Feel free to look it up if anybody in chat
Yeah.
can
I don't
like
have the time, but
give us a little more information. But yes, so when, let's say I'm going to use purifying ritual,
mhm.
if he's in range with somebody that has a deny, he can attempt to deny my purifying ritual at no cost to his deny. That unit can then still deny a psychic power. So it goes both ways.
Man,
He took mutilate landscape, so it's like when
yeah.
he tries to cast it, I can try and deny it for free.
So when I said that I love the intricacies of the vast like rule set of this game, I wasn't talking about shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, or this teleport assault question. You know, like that's not what I'm talking about when I say like I love how crazy these rules are. What I mean by that is I love that every faction feels very different. That, you know, even though your basic troops in one army might be X, in another army it's Y, and they play totally differently. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I really, really like, is that, like, um, the, um, the deep well of difference there. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of a better word for that. But, yes. Anyway,
Yeah, so it's that one. I start picking off his Tzangors. He can't do anything, and then it's just I'm able to just run away with it at the end. I even told him I had some people coming up and like, hey, how's the game going? And it's like turn 1 and 2. He was able to deny a lot of my purifies, so it's I was on the A side in the deployment player A, so it's like that one I pretty much got to get off every time, but he had stuff near the top left corner in the center, so he was denying my purifies turns 1 and 2, so it was like 1 point, 1 point. And then at the end of the game when he had nothing, I was like, cool, I'm gonna do it for 1, 2, 4, and 5. Excuse me, on turns 4 and 5. So we ended up capping purify again with that late game comeback because it allows you to scale up in points so hard.
yeah, that's awesome. That's, I mean, like, I don't know. This like it seems like a great game, just in general. And before anybody poo-poos this too much, I just looked up the opponent's score. He got 95 in his first game, and you got 94, and that's why you guys got matched up.
Yep.
So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing, and I mean, it could have been he went up against just a perfect like counter, unlikely, but you know, it sounds like that was just a really fun match, and thematic.
Oh, it was so much fun. That was easily the most fun match I've had in quite some time, only because it was very flavorful. His list was a lot of fun to look at. He's actually a pretty good player. He won one of the, I think it was like 2 months ago. He won a different Warpstorm RTT with Chaos Knights.
Okay.
Or it was either Chaos or Imperial. It was one of the knights. I can't remember which one, but it's like he knows what he's doing. He's been playing the game for much longer than the two of us have. I think he's been in it for about 20 years or so. But this is the first year I think he's got into it competitively. So
Yeah.
again, the competitive scene much more different than the casual scene.
At the same
Uh,
time, though, I have been very impressed by how cool almost everybody I've played with has been.
Yep.
Like, this is a game where where you're locked in place for 2.5 to 3 hours. You're playing a game with a rando. Like, this isn't like joining a League of Legends match and it's 20 minutes minimum or whatever, right? Like, and then you're out by like 40 minutes. You have to deal with this person for nearly 3 hours. And the fact that I've had so many personable, like, funny, people who allow take backsies and playing by intent, it's really refreshing. So
I do. I both love and hate the playing by intent. I understand that in a miniatures game, it's like a table gets bumped, a mat gets bumped, something moves. So it's like as long as whoever I'm playing is very open, honest, and clear, they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna move these dudes up." My intent is, they're just outside. I'm within 9, so I have an 8-inch charge. If we go to charge and they're like, "Okay, looks like I need a 7," it's like, well, no, we'd agreed like maybe something got bumped. But yeah, it's like as long as everybody's just open, clear communication, then the games are normally great. I have had several people that I've played where it's like I'll roll insane saves or they'll roll poor saves, something along those lines, and it's like, yeah, it's really easy to get flustered, frustrated, but it's one of those things that it's like that happens. That's why you signed up to play the game. You know that this is the possibility, even though the numbers are like, man, all I fail on ones. There's no way I'm going to fail 6 in a row. They get the average and the law of numbers somehow, and you just happen to fall on the poopier side of that scale. But it happens. There's
here.
no reason to get mad at your opponent for it when it's not necessarily their fault. So I will say the vast majority of people I've played against have been very, very, very cool and fun to play against. But there have been those few where it's like, man, win or lose, I'm pretty ready to step away from this table.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've thrown in the amount of games that you have, even though I've been playing twice as long. But I've been very lucky, I think, in my opponents. But there's always that possibility, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we go on to round 3.
Yeah.
Round
Round
3.
Black Legion.
Yeah, Black Legion. This was the
Super cool.
scariest game that I played all day, but the one I scored the highest on and gave up the fewest on.
Dude,
So,
like
hmm,
Abaddon, have you read that data sheet?
uh,
It's like reading this book. That data
yep.
sheet is insane. It's so gnarly. Like,
Yeah, he's got so much stuff. He's got Abaddon, Dark Apostle, Lord Discordant, Master of Possession, uh 3x9 cultists, 1x5 terms, 2x10 chosen, 1x5 havocs, and then that nice T9 land raider. Inside that land raider, he started with a brick of chosen, and then he had another brick that he started in the center of the game. I believe he took turn 1, and we're on the scouring. And this one I was actually pretty worried about.
why is the scouring always the third mission at NRTT?
Because nothing wants you to die inside more than playing the scouring after you've already spent 7 hours doing a lot of mental math. So why not just go ahead and add that on for like some insult to injury? Oh, so it's I took player A, he took player B. He had first turn. Oh no, I had first turn for the first time in the game. So that was exciting. So I moved up and took top left, bottom left, and I actually didn't do anything on that center objective. I didn't move on to it at all. Only because I knew that whatever I did, he'd be able to come in and just tear apart.
Mm-hmm.
So with the scouring, that's the one where you can like start a. Oh, it says it right there. You can just scan an objective to get points. So he came up. I took, what do we have? Purifying Ritual, Banners, and No Prisoners. So I banner and ritual, the two that I'm on. So that gives me an easy 2 points for ritual, sets me up for 2 points on banners that he's not going to be able to reach me at. I didn't touch that center. So it's like I could have touched that center, tried to ritual, and get 2 more points. But the reason I didn't is because, again, I knew he would be able to kill whatever I put on there, and 2 victory points in turn 1 was not worth losing an interceptor squad for.
Nope.
So I held back. I put my big L pretty much right where that 12-inch number is on my side of the map.
This one
Uh,
right here.
Yep, that one right there.
Yeah. I wish I could like annotate, but I can't.
Oh, I understand. So I actually parked. I had 2 units of interceptors right behind that big L, and then I had my Dreadknights also bundled up behind that big L, kind of taking little peeks so that way I can shoot at what I could. I pretty much took off turn 1. I don't think I did anything because I wanted him to have nothing to do on turn 1 as well, except move up.
Mm-hmm.
So he bannered, he scanned, and then he moved up on the center and tried to put. He did something there. Oh, he tried to scan that one with his Land Raider. So he moved his Land Raider up onto that center objective, and he tried to scan it.
Right. So
Uh,
right in the middle, he just placed his 16 wound T9.
Correct. And
Land
then
Raider.
he had Abaddon a little bit behind it, to the top right. He had Lord Discordant also behind it, up a little into the top right. And then he had he had Cultist on each of the other objectives, and a unit, his Havocs were on the bottom right objective as well, and his other brick of Chosen were, where did he have the other? Also on the bottom left objective. So on my second turn, again, I just ritual, and then I action the bottom left one. And this one, this is where I spent a bunch of CP to attempt to pop this raider. So we 3d6 cast on the Grandmaster, 2 casts on the Grandmaster. So we smited it, we Vortex of Doomed it. We Vortex of Doomed it, and then we Empiric Amplificationed it.
There you go.
We smited it with another Dreadknight. And then we just unloaded all of our shooting into it, and we killed it for Exacxies on 16 wounds, even though it's T9. He then rolled a 6 to see if it exploded. Thankfully, it did. He dealt 3 mortals to Abaddon, 1 mortal to the Lord Discordant. He killed 1 cultist of his, and then he killed 1 chosen of his. And I was like, boy, we needed all of that. Unfortunately, he did not lose anything in the explosion when rolling to see if any of those chosen would die. So he just had the 10 there, which on his turn, he gave the they already had -1 to wound. Then he gives the 5 up, feel no pain, full re-rolls to wound and hit, and I'm like, uh-oh. He sends them straight into my L, where I had my dude sitting. I had 1 unit of 5 screening out around the 12, so he couldn't double charge a unit and split his attacks, even if he consolidated or piled in. So I was like, cool. At worst, I'm going to lose a unit. Little did I know that when he killed that unit, Chosen now just have every doctrine for the rest of the game. And I was like,
Oh.
oh, yeah. Apparently, if Chosen kill a unit in melee, they functionally get all of their doctrines for the rest of the game, which means exploding 6s at all times
Mm-hmm.
is the relevant part.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay. These things are super, super tanky.
And now they're
So
super killy.
yep. So he moves those up. He parks Abaddon on that center objective. He tries to shoot his Havocs into my Grandmaster, which is right around. It's diagonal right from my bottom left objective, so it's like diagonal right up, almost near that 12-inch mark.
Right over
He
here.
he chooses to shoot it with a Havocs. I move it behind 9 inches behind his bottom right terrain piece in his deployment zone, so he can't see it with anything else except his cultists. But he's not going to charge it with his cultists; they'll just die. So that's actually where my Grandmaster stayed the entire game. So I sacrificed getting all of the reroll 1s on my Dreads because I wanted to see if I could lure anything away from his death ball in the center. So on my turn, I move the Grandmaster up. I shoot off all of the cultists. I charge and melee off all of the Havocs. On his turn, he moves his Lord Discordant from the center to the Grandmaster. I use my once per game 3-up invuln for the turn. He leaves my Grandmaster at 2 from 13.
Whew.
And I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. But I turn around, and even though I'm only getting like 4 attacks now, hitting on 3s, I still hit with all 4. I wound with 3. He saves 1, and I kill the Lord Discordant. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of breathing room. He charges a big brick into my bottom right objective, where he's got 9 chosen into a 5-man interceptor unit. He kills 1 interceptor because I rolled like 13 out of 14 5-ups.
Holy moly.
Yep, and I was like, well, that's really good for me. And then I was able to next turn wipe that unit. He deep strikes his unit of 5 terms on the very back edge of my deployment zone. That's the only spot I gave him because I had screened out everything except that center part. But that means he has no terrain to like hide behind. They were just kind of in the open. So on my next turn, my Dreadknights shot backwards into them, wiped out 4 out of the 5, and then my other Dreadknights were able to charge in and then just start picking off all of the other things that he had moved up. I fatal precog his Abaddon while it was in the center, and he was at 6 wounds. So he left it there for turns 2 and 3.
Wow.
He didn't move it until turn 4, where he finally moved it up to try and kill a Dread. That Dread lived at 4. The Tech Marine healed it for 3. And then it was just, I had wiped out everything else. All he had was Abaddon, so we ended up getting there 95 to 50.
Wow. You killed
So
everything except Abaddon.
I killed everything except Abaddon.
It's not very Grey Knight of you. You should have killed Abaddon first. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, trust, I wanted to, but every time I thought about putting shots into him, I'm like, dude's gonna have like a 0-up save. I can only deal 3 wounds to it, which means oh, and apparently they just always have he had like 3 Marcus Lineshes, so both of his chosen units and then something else they just always have fight first.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I just can't charge anything into that man. So it's like if I'm not going to be able to kill it in shooting or psychic, then there's not a whole lot I can do.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
trying
just kind
to
of
grab Abaddon. Abaddon the spoiler. I wonder if this is updated yet. Looks like it is. 300 points. Yep, his giant data sheet. Holy moly. Does he have the? I mean, I assume he does. Yep, he has the Heretic Astartes keyword, so he has Armor of Contempt.
he sure does.
Yeah,
He
and
is a tanky lad.
yeah, and of course he has a 2-up. He has 9 wounds, which means he can get Lookout, sir. And then what? Does he have that thing where he can only like take 3 wounds a phase or something?
Yep, 3 wounds a phase.
Yeah. He is
That's
a
why
tanky boy.
Yep, that's why I didn't really bother to touch him because again, it's one of those things where it's like he's not going to be able to win the game with just Abaddon.
Yeah.
So if I take out everything else, then he'll just have to give himself the full rerolls. He'll kill whatever unit he touches in melee, but that's only 1 unit a turn, and then I just get to continue to move things around the board, and he can't keep up.
Yeah, and grab points, score those primary, score those secondaries. So what did your opponent do when you made, what, 14 out of 16 5-ups or whatever? Or 13 out of 15 or whatever it was.
He stopped and he looked at my bucket, like my little dice tray that I rolled in. He's like, huh, well, that's not good for me. I was like, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
Man, that's insane.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean stuff like that happens. Like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier. It's like you get the law of averages somewhere, and it's sometimes you're just on the positive end of those rolls. And it's had I not done that, then that brick of chosen also gets exploding 6s at all times. And then I honestly have no idea if I'm actually able to hang on that tight. Based off of how much I won by, I feel like I probably still get there, but if anything, it's a much closer game.
Yeah, it's a
So
tighter
it
game
probably
for sure.
yeah, it probably comes down to somewhere in like the 80s versus 70s range.
Yeah.
If not a little bit closer than that, but it's I'm glad it worked out the way that it did.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Noah has a comment. not really the question, but a comment. Although we are in a great place with the secondaries, I strongly believe that the game needs to revert back to one faction secondary. Whole game at the moment is haves versus have-nots with secondaries. I personally, I see, I see what you're trying to say. But it was kind of that way even with one faction secondary. Like, purifying ritual has been our competitive like crutch for a while because it was so good, right? Like, it's just 15 points guaranteed. I don't think, or if you go back through all of my interviews for the last like year since the introduction of the Ninth Ed Grey Knights book, I don't think there's a single person who's done well without taking purifying ritual as Grey Knights. Like, it's just too good, right? It's like being the Necrons now, and if you have the Silent King not taking that one where you get points for killing units, or like being Dark Angels and not taking Stubborn Defiance back before it was nerfed. Like, you know, there are secondaries that are just amazing. And I don't think that change. I mean, I guess it was amplified by being able to pick two if you have two really good ones. But then if you look at the Grey Knight Codex specifically, like, Teleport Assault isn't bad. It's not. But it's not stellar. It's not like Purifying Ritual. It's not Herd the Prey, right? Like, Herd the Prey is incredible. It's basically reverse engage.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, how do you feel about that?
I actually like that they're allowing armies to take multiple of their own secondaries, only because that's just what feels the most flavorful. If I were going into any other game, it would be like any other style of game where you get to choose things like on based on how you get points. It makes the most sense to me that it's like, okay, Grey Knights, they're good at this, so their secondaries revolve around doing these things. Whereas the
Mm.
core ones feel like those should be the like the fallbacks. Those are the ones that you're like, man, none of my other like Grey Knight specific ones are good. Let me see what the core book has for me. And it's they showcase that very well with stratagems. It's the same thing. That's almost like saying you can only use so many of your own Grey Knight stratagems. You have to use mainly core book ones. It's like, no, you have the bulk of your stratagems are specific to your army because that's what they're good at. The core strats, like the rerolls, are the fallback stratagems. If you don't have anything else to do, or you've got some people, you've got 5 dudes surrounding one guy and he tries to fall back, I guess I'll try and cut off the head, see if I can roll a 6 to deal immortal. But I think flavor
Uh,
ability, you
I like
want
how you
your.
picked like the worst stratagem in the game too.
So I lost a game at Motor City Mayhem because of that.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
I had my Grandmaster on 1. I go to fall back so I can shoot and charge with my CP, killing off his warlord that's contesting me on the objective. And if I kill that warlord, I run away with the game. I fall back. He's like, if if I don't cut off the head, you're gonna win. He rolls a 6. He deals 1 mortal. I roll a 4, not saving on that mortal, and it kills my Grandmaster. And
Yep.
it's like, should you ever do it? I mean, realistically, no. But when you're trying to
Yeah,
play from
that's pretty
behind,
clutch.
yeah, you have to do things that are you have to make plays, or you have to do things that are vastly unexpected. And even if the percentages aren't in your number, if that's the only chance you have to win, you're better off taking that 1 in 6% chance that then goes into a 66% chance with the save to
Yeah,
win the game instead of a 0% chance to win the game.
that's fair. That's fair. I guess I want to go back to like Noah's point here because I think it's an interesting one. I guess it's more like how can we design a codex where if you have 3 secondaries, how do you design it? And this is a big question. I don't actually expect there to be like a good answer. Where like 1 secondary is good, or really strong, and then 2 are good, but then they are like different based on playstyle. Does that make sense? Like, I don't even remember what the 3rd Grey Knight secondary is because nobody uses it. It's trash, right? It's like you know, it's the same with my Death Watch. Like, Long Vigil or Cripple Stronghold, which got buffed. I think it's better now, but like, it's not good. So it's oh, okay, never mind. It's the kill one for against demons, which is why no one takes it, because like demons right now anyway, who knows when that book is out, but right now like demons aren't played. They're just not good at all. So I guess that's a good example where it's really good in niche situations. Is that a creativity? Is that like a design problem? Like, how do we make it so that when codexes come out, everybody is on a level playing field based on their secondaries versus, all right, I have a strong codex, but I have shit secondaries, so I guess I'll just take ones out of the core book, right?
That's tough. To me, it feels like if I'm going to create something like that, I either do diminishing return secondaries, so it's like purifying ritual. It almost doesn't matter what you're against. That's going to be your free 15. As a creator, I have to acknowledge that that's probably going to be a free 15. And then you're like, all right, so we still have 2 more secondaries to craft. We already have 1 free 15. Do we want to make the other one cap at 13? Do we want to make it cap at 12? So I think everybody should have a free 15 because there's still a chance that you don't get it depending on the matchup, but you could. Then you have another one that might be again, it caps at 12 or 13. But what do I have to do to get it? Maybe make purifying ritual a little harder, but it can go up to 15. Maybe then make something a little easier, but it caps at 13. Make something even more easier, but it caps at 12. So I think purifying ritual instead of on a 5, it should be on a 6. Because then you still have 1, 2, 4, and 5. I'm fine with the point structures, but it's going to make it just that much harder to cast because I fail plenty of 5-ups.
Tell me about it.
and the amount that I hit exactly on a 5, if it's a 6, I don't get it. So Warhammer has a whole lot of knobs that they can turn to try and tweak things. But the thing about having so many knobs is you have to just do a little bit of knob 1, then a little bit of knob 2, and not at the same time realistically, because if you
Yeah.
change too much, that's when it's like, okay, we messed something up, let's revert. Let's see. Blood Angels have Relentless Assault. If they've got somebody in my deployment zone, that's 4 points. And it's like, man, that's pretty good. Stubborn Defiance from Dark Angels. That's really good. Sisters have the whatever their miracle dice one is, Leap of Faith.
Don't they have like
So
numerous really good ones? Like, that's why, or one of the reasons why like sisters are so strong in the meta right now is just because they have 2 really good secondaries.
yep, and it's one of those things where it's weirdly enough, sisters always had them, I believe,
Right.
but sisters were hovering around that A tier army, and because there were so many S tiers that existed, they just weren't good. But enough S tiers got nerfed, where sisters just gradually went from being A to S, and because of that, they're seeing play, and their secondaries are just finally now being highlighted as to how good they are, how consistent the army can be. Uh, and it's when it comes to creating secondaries, even though the Grey Knights one, the 3rd one is the demon one. Again, I completely forgot about that one. There's so many strats in the book that are like, do something with demons, or psychic powers, do something with demons. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, this is pretty useless. But now when the Codex comes out, same thing. People love chaosy things. So many people are going to be playing demons as long as they're not just bad. And then that's going to unlock something like maybe that secondary becomes good, and people are like, "Oh man, the secondary is busted. I can't play demons in the Grey Knights." And it's like,
Well,
give me a
I
break. It's been
mean,
a year and a half, and we've never touched this secondary.
yeah. Also,
Uh,
I mean, that's thematic.
yep.
Can't play
Yeah,
demons into Grey Knights.
yeah. Maybe that forces me to finally play Drago. I mean,
Yeah,
boy,
I do
who
love
who
Drago.
yeah, who knew that having a chapter master with a 3-up invuln would be bad at the moment, but it is.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe when demons come out, it'll be a little bit easier.
Yeah, this is going to be a little interesting because right now the way the book is written, like our only way to get fight last is against demons specifically, which sucks obviously against anything else. I was actually very appreciative when the 9th ed Grey Knight book hit that they took a bunch of those things that had been like baked into the data sheets and cost us points, but were only like anti-demon, and they made them stratagems or they made them a secondary, and they got them out of like the data sheets and they made it like a tide, right? Like tide of banishment. Like reroll ones, so once a hit and once a wound against demons all the time, army wide. Don't care if it's core or whatever. You just get it. That's amazing.
Yep.
But then now we see, like we've seen some previews and there are leaks out there too. They don't even, like demons don't have invul saves anymore, but we have abilities that interact with demon invul specifically. Like the Demon Slayer Warlord trait. It ignores demons invuls, but now demons don't have invuls. They have these demon saves or whatever they're called. I don't remember. It's some like, I don't know, etherealness save or something, right? So as the game is currently written, the anti-demons faction with the anti-demon warlord trait that you have to spend a CP now to get doesn't work on the new demons book. Because it straight up says like the demon saves are different. They are not invuls. So I don't know if it's the Slanesh demons or whatever that have a 3-up against ranged attacks. So if a Tau railgun fires at them, they make their 3-up. That Tau railgun just does 3 mortal wounds, and that's it. Actually, I don't even think it does that. It does nothing. So
wow.
So we'll see how that all works, how that plays out. Because as it stands right now, like when the Demons book hits, I hope Grey Knights or any faction with some anti-demon stuff gets some kind of fact that says like, you know, Demon Slayer does work against demon saves, or else why ever take it? I mean, it gets you +1 attack, which is not bad, but like, you know, it's an anti-demons warlord trait that won't work against demons as it is currently written, which is a little goofy.
Yeah, I can see them putting out an FAQ in like whatever chapter approved when demons come out, rewording that to ignore demon saves, because I agree it would be very upsetting if it's like, hey, ignore invulns. By the way, we don't have invulns, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So I think that's probably one of the things that they'll work on, but it does feel fairly loose that they decided to change all of that after implementing 9th edition rules against those things.
Yeah. And then now there's talk about 10th, like right around the corner. So, and then Dominic has a great question, actually, coming back to my main man, Drago. He's asking if you think he's bad at the moment.
Yes, I do. Like Chapter Master buff, it's good, but it's only rerolling the hit roll, whereas all of the good Chapter Masters right now are full reroll of hit and wound. Now, if Drago gave me an Abaddon reroll, a Morven Vol reroll, yeah, 100%. I think I put in Drago because having both Hammer Hand and reroll the hit, very strong. But that's about all he's doing.
Yeah.
All of my other characters, like the Tech Marine or the Librarian, they're sitting back. They're not getting into the fights because they're just they're tech pieces. They're doing something from a distance, whether it be 3 inches, 18 inches. Drago, I have to take him. I have to try and move him up the board safely, and then I got to get him in combat with somebody. It's like even then, it's like what am I doing? Am I going to Chapter Master himself? Reroll the hits? There's no matchups that I can go into right now where it's like, you know what? I'd really like a Drago. And if there was, it's like, what am I cutting? Because I don't remember how many points Drago is off the top of my head. I want to say it's like
180.
160, 180.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's overcosted. I
Yeah.
would totally agree with you there.
Yeah. So it's like I'm looking at my list now, and it's like, cool, 180. What am I cutting? The 4th non-kitted out Dreadknight? I'll pass.
Yeah.
A librarian, or like servitors and a 5-man interceptor. I'll probably pass. So it's like I just can't think of a matchup where I want him, and he's just so overcosted. He doesn't give me the style of rerolls that I want. I mean, having a 3-up invuln, fantastic. Having multiple powers is good, but
Yeah.
everything else I have in my army, that's why you kind of you place the powers you want across the characters you want. It's like I need warp shaping. Tech Marine has it. Other than that, divination gave me a CP. Librarian, when you're making a librarian, you're either making it the mortal wound bomb or you're making it gate and sanctuary. The Grandmaster, empiric amplification, vortex of doom. So it's if I were gonna put another character in somewhere, it would probably be Crow, only because he's 90 points.
Yeah.
He gets purifying flame, which is a house of a mortal wound dealer.
Yep.
He auto fights on death, I believe.
He does.
And
He
he
has a 6-inch heroic intervention, which surprises every single person every time I've ever used Crow.
Yep.
And that sword is bomb now.
Oh, that Black Blade is
Yeah.
it hits like a truck loud. It's like that's a character I like. So if I had 90 points spare somewhere, I'm putting Crow in. I did fool around with the idea of doing a more Crow and what's the elite squad? Purifiers. I thought
Yeah.
about doing some form of so it's like Crow, Librarian, Purifiers, and just do a heavy witchcraft build because you do have the I can't remember if it's a relic or a trait where if somebody uses purifying flame, it deals extra mortal wounds. Witchcraft gets or witchfire, whatever it's called, gets to you can get to cast it multiple times. You have, I believe, strats that probably also help deal more mortal wounds to it. Crow gets +1 to cast on it, so you save him for last. So I think that Grey Knights could go
Purifiers get
almost.
+1
Yeah. Oh,
to
there you go.
cast it
So it's
too.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're just like, cool. I'm spamming mortals at you. My melee is still also not bad. But I personally just really love the Dreadknights themselves. That whole build, 13 wounds with a 2-up, 4-up shooting, melee, psychic. That's just where I feel like I want to be. I feel like that's where Grey Knights kind of want to be. But if anything ever changes, let's say that they make purifiers a little bit cheaper, or let's say that they make the Dreadknights a little bit more expensive, then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, now I'm going a T Suns Grey Knights build,
Yeah.
where we're like, we don't have +1 to cast, we don't have Cabal points, but or we don't inherently have +1 to cast across the board, but it's like the Purifiers and Crow have +1 to cast.
Yeah.
That Librarian's gonna get in, get out. I'm gonna give him Sigil of Exigence and the Gem of Intuku, so that way I'm just like, I'm here. I'm gonna hit you for like 11 to 15 mortal wounds, and depending on what you are, if you try and shoot me, I'm gonna run away, and then I'm gonna come back and try and do it again.
Does the gem doesn't work on Smite? Does it work on? I think it
I'm
only
gonna.
works on Vortex in the Mortal Wounds Libby, basically. It's like,
Huh? I thought
yeah,
it just
it's
gave.
not.
I thought it was like all your powers were like +2 to cast that turn.
It's +2, but there's a specific requirement. I don't think Smite. I think Purifying Flame and maybe Vortex count. In fact, I know that it works on Vortex, and I know that it doesn't work on Smite. My real question is, does it work on Purifying
Oh,
Flame?
okay.
I don't think it
Uh,
does.
no, it's Dominus class. So the
Yeah,
other ones
that's
were
right.
like
That's right.
Sanctic. Okay, so you can't do
Yeah.
that, but that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. You're still getting. I still think I give him the sigil. He gets in, and then he's just like 3 cast, 3d6 cast, extra cast, and then you're just like,
Yeah.
cool, smite you, vortex you, purifying flame you, and then if you try and shoot me, I run away. Something along those lines. So I think that Grey Knights can put out a lot of mortals depending on how you want to build it. I think right now it's just better to go your moderate high volume shooting with pretty heavy handed melee.
Yeah. I do love our melee. Like, I made a video when the first preview was announced where, like, strike squads are basically on the offensive. They're almost like Blade Guard, but for, way less expensive. um, I don't want to make this a harp session, but, like, I cast 3 games this last weekend that included Custodes. 4 total Custodes players. Every single person brought Trajan. Trajan's 200 points. And I know Trajan has no like psychic stuff, but if you compare Trajan to Drago, it's not even close. Like, Trajan, can reroll. hit and wounds of 1. He innately for himself rerolls all hits. He has a 6-inch heroic intervention. He gets to refund CP when you use it, and then he I know he has no no he is ranged, but he also slaps in combat. He doesn't slap as hard as Drago could in combat theoretically, but like he slaps real hard. He's also strength and toughness 5 for 20 points more over Drago. Now Drago is a 3-up invul, which is nothing to snuff or like, you know, to like sniff at, or balk at. And he has psychic shenanigans, but mostly you're gonna bring him to do like gate and empiric amplification, which is what you're doing with in your list. That's what you're doing with the combo of your Grandmaster Dreadknight and your Librarian anyway. And otherwise, he's just kind of like, he's a really beefy Librarian, effectively. He gets nose 3, cast 2, and he has that Titan Sword and a 3-up invul. And I just don't like, if you're bringing a Supreme Commander, Trajan feels like a Supreme Commander. Abaddon feels like a Supreme Commander. The big old orc whose name I can't remember now, he feels like a Supreme Commander. But
Gazgul?
like, yeah, Gazgul. But yeah, Drago just kind of feels like a hard to kill Librarian.
Yep. I mean, even when it comes back to like Trajan, like I think the only thing that you missed out on was Moment Shackle, so he can fight again or ignore a damage.
You're right. I forgot all about that.
Yep. Yeah, it's like so it's like that. It's like that. Those are reasons why I think that Drago's just not good right now. Now it's like if they made Drago 140, 40 points off, it's like maybe I could probably get behind that, but it's like I still think he needs a bit more. I like him a little bit more in Nephilim because I'm not forced to take his real poopy warlord trait, the only one he can take, the demon one.
Yeah, the Demon Slayer one.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe when like the Demon Codex comes out, it's a little bit better. But I don't like that. That's all he could take. That's why I just like having the options. And for point efficiencies, he's just not there at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I got about 15 minutes to wrap this up. If anybody has any questions, please drop them now, and we will happily answer them. I do agree Trajan's too cheap, and I do agree that Drago's too expensive. Where those numbers ought to land, I don't know. But yes, I definitely feel like, you know, we have that codex creep. I think the Tau book was probably the most like heinous about it, but you know, we have that codex creep. Well, I guess Drukari, and Admech, and then Orcs, and then Tau. So never mind. It's been pretty gnarly all the way through. But yeah, we're definitely feeling a little left behind. And then for those of you who are here that have seen my like Brotherhood redesign videos, I don't think that like the Brotherhoods went as far as they should have to make Grey Knights like every Brotherhood play very differently. And I know that we're always gonna find a best build, regardless of if everything's good. But you know, I feel like the Grey Knights book was kind of dropped a little bit. What games do you think we struggle most against with the current rules, army-wide?
Ooh, okay, let's see. I'm trying to think of what I know some of my worst matchups are. Sisters is one of them. Sisters is such a hard matchup. Probably because I just have super PTSD from all of my opponents rolling 6s on their one die deny. I played a game the other week in against my testing partner, and he was like, "I'm gonna try and deny," and he's like, 6, 6. We did a total. I cast between actions and powers 27 of them, and he rolled 26s. I got off 7 powers or actions, and I was like, okay. I mean, stuff like that happens. I mean, sisters also have, fight on death with Repentia. Real good when you're trying to go into them with your interceptors and some strikes. Retributors with Morven Vol rerolls just demolish your dreads. They have a lot of good stuff on top of their secondaries being very good. When it comes to shooting armies, I've never felt all that terrible against Tau, even pre-nerf. It didn't feel too terribly bad. Now that they're nerf, with AOC, the no line of sight penalty, and them taking stuff away from broadsides or crisis suits. I think they may have given broadsides core, like back core. I can't remember.
Yeah, they took core away from broadsides. And then I think for the most part, Tau just dropped all of their like SMSs and went for more plasma. So
Yep.
better into AOC. But anyway.
Let's see. Against I've played against Clowns and Eldari. Those don't feel too bad. Storm Bolters do very well against them.
With,
Nids. Oh, go ahead.
It's been my experience when I'm playing into Eldari. Obviously not Drukari, but like Eldari and Quinn's. If you can shut down their sidekick powers, which we get +1 to deny, they lose so much efficiency. Like if you can stop Doom from going off, if you can stop Jinx from going off, like if you can stop all those crazy powers that they have from actually going off, then like I played in an RTT against a Uthway like meta build, and the guy was like, I can't do anything because you're just shutting down all of my psychic. And I'm like, well, sorry.
Yeah.
Grey Knights.
Pretty much. Nids was probably I would say one of our worst matchups. Whether it be the was Leviathan from before the Codex came out, and even when the new Codex came out, where they're just like, all right, here's like 4 Neurothropes, 2 Winged Hive Tyrants, and some other stuff, and then whatever the big fat bug was, where it's like, hey, my power went off. Closest thing within like so many inches of me is
Malice
gonna take
Scepter.
flat 3
Hate those
mortals. I'm
things.
like, yeah, I was like, okay. I played against the last time I played against them was Motor City Mayhem, and it was the final round. The guy and I, like, we weren't competing for anything. We weren't going to make top. I ended up squeaking it out by 1 point. I think it was
Wow.
75 to 74. And I was like, this army is terrible. Yeah, it's like, and now they're playing like 40 warriors that are so hard to kill. Man, I would say if you get paired up against a Nids matchup, I couldn't even really tell you what to go for. It's like part of me wants to tell you again, kill the plebs, leave them with nothing except big bugs that they can't deal with whatever you have left. And especially with those big bugs, if they have like -1 of the damage characteristics, now you're just putting 1 damage into them no matter what you do, unless it's mortals or unless you empiric amplification. Things like that are why I almost want to. When I switch up my army, you would ask me what changes I might make. I'm going
Yeah, I
to
was
attempt
actually just gonna ask that.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt the mortal wound bomb of a librarian because boy, that sounds fun because it's like here is one big thing right here that your army might revolve around, and if I'm able to dump anywhere between 10 to 15 mortals into it, if it's not dead, it's massively wounded. It
Yeah.
could be Abominant, could be like a Maliceptor, anything like that, and then it's like okay, I do that, and then what? But it does sound fun to be able to just kind of burst down any one thing. But it is going to feel bad if I ever run into T-Sun Sisters, anything that has those really good deny abilities, where it's like, I'm going to try and kill this thing, and it's like, nope, denied. I'm like, all right, try and kill it again. Nope, denied. So it's matchups
Yeah.
like that. You just have to really pick and choose. Be sure to measure out where their denies are coming from. Be sure to conserve your CP, which is why I like the Prescient Brotherhood Divination ability. So that way you're like, I'm going to extend the range by 6 because that extra 6 inches could be the difference between you being in range of one of their psychers or out of range of one of their psychers. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind of. But even then, it's like most of your stuff is going to be 12 inches. That'll put you to 18 if they have anybody within 24. That's still going to be pretty tough. But other than changing up the librarian, I will go back to. I'll probably drop the servitors, add teleporters back onto the other 3 dreads, just so that way I can maybe mess around with teleport assault a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about. I'm gonna test around with sword bearers again, only because I am playing those 4 dreadknights and having +1 to wound is nice. but I want to see how a game feels when I don't have the ability to regen that CP, because our transhuman costing 2
Yeah,
hurts
I
so
don't
much.
even know what they were smoking when they went that direction.
Yep, it's tough. So it's like part of me thinks when they did Nephilim and they squished the CP, I was really hoping that they would take things. If it's 3 CP, now it's 2 CP. If it's 2, now it's 1. If it's 1, it stays at 1. But I think our true silver should be 1 CP for 5 or less models, 2 CP for more than 5
Yeah.
models.
I mean, this goes back to our earlier conversation where we're talking about like the complexity. And it's like if you're gonna give transhuman like abilities, probably game wide, right? Like they should be the same. Like, or you know, if you're gonna give fight first or fight last, like if it says if the keyword is like fights first or whatever, there should be one definition of what fights first is.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
or fights last, or I can't think of another like example off the top of my head, but there are a couple of abilities in the game that you call it like the same thing, but it actually works differently based on the army, and that's confusing as hell. And that's the kind of thing where like we could get rid of a lot of confusion if the game was redesigned in that way. I also think there's too many damn stratagems. Like honestly, when you can consider the core ones, and then like you know if like the Grey Knight ones, and then there's different ones where like so Grey Knights, right? They have Fury of the First, or effectively it's the same kind of stratagem with a different name, except Fury of the First. So on Terminators, in a normal Space Marine uh, chapter, you get +1 to hit in range and melee. But for Grey Knights, it's only melee. Same cost, but it specifically says, you know, Terminators only, and then you get +1 to hit in melee, and that's it. And I'm always wondering why. Like, what are they afraid of? You know?
Yep. I actually really believe that when I look at all of the codexes that have come out since I started playing, for some reason, I tend to gravitate towards the ones that are very fair. So it's like Grey Knights had their heyday, but they were no Tau, they were no Drakari, they were no Admech. I think everything they have is actually just very I don't want to say very well balanced, because I honestly feel like they're a bit on the weaker scale. So it's like
Mhm.
things like you were just discussing. It's like they should change up the wording just a little bit. It's like, does it make them too good? I don't think so. Not if you just tweak the smallest of knobs. Uh, and it's like I think knights are honestly also pretty fair. It's like Chaos Knights have been doing uh a little bit. I don't think Imperial Knights are all that great. Chaos Knights, with the depending on how you're running them, the Abominant having no rerolls against it. That's that makes a lot of people really angry, but it's fair, because like heaven forbid you're hitting me on 2s but not rerolling your 1s. Lord forbid. And then it's like I have to deal 10 wounds to something, and then I become transhuman to hit. I know that was a huge thing that people were going on about. It's like, oh well, why do knights have transhuman to hit? And it's like Chaos Marines have something that's trans to hit, and it's like, man, that's
And
rough. That's
Quinns.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so I feel like Grey Knights are just a very fair army. I don't think that they're too weak. I think they're a little weak. I don't think that they're too strong at all. Let's see. It's like Dominic asked, if I'm gonna go the Mortal Wound Librarian, what changes do I make to the psychic powers? So it's like he will have what does he have? 2. So he'll have Vortex of Doom, Purifying, and then Smite. Then the Grandmaster has
Vortex.
Empiric
Oh
Amplification,
right.
and
Gotcha.
probably Vortex, or not Vortex. Gate. So
Gate.
Empiric and Gate. The Tech Marine still just has Warp Shaping, so I'm actually having to lose Sanctuary, but I'm fine losing Sanctuary only because I feel like that is the weakest of the powers that we have. And some people might disagree. They might be like, no, giving something a 4-up invuln, so good, but it doesn't really matter when Armor Contempt puts your AP 2 shots to a 4-up save. Armor Contempt plus light cover from Tide of Shadows, or just being in light cover, puts you to you know, if you have AP3, that's still a 4-up save.
Yeah,
And so it's
that's
like
true.
I don't think Sanctuary is as needed as it once was. Now, you know, check back in with me if Salamanders ever become a thing and they're hitting me with AP5 every turn, then I might have something to say. But until then, I think I'm fine sacrificing Sanctuary to make the Mortal Wound Librarian and then just running Gate and Empiric on the Grandmaster.
Well, let me know how it goes with the Mortal Wounds Librarian, because I've played probably a dozen games with him, and I'm apparently just playing him like a total idiot because he never gets in, he never gets to like do his thing. If I do drop him in from deep strike or I waste a gate on him, he like flubs and only does the minimum amount of mortal wounds after I drop 3 CP on him to make him, go Nova. And it just feels bad personally, but
Yep. Let's see, Dominic asking, when going back to Sword Bears, would you still play Libby, Grandmaster, and Tech Marine as HQs? Well, it's like, yeah, of course I still play the Grandmaster because he counts for Sword Bears. So I take that. And I'm not sure if I know you had stepped away to walk your dogs when I was going over my list, and I'm not sure
yeah.
if Dominic was in here earlier, but the librarian was actually not a mistake, but it was actually supposed to be a second Tech Marine. But I couldn't find my second Tech Marine when I was making the list. So when I was submitting my list the week of, I actually was like, I guess it was either I play a librarian, crow, or a chaplain. And let me tell you, chaplains are not good for Grey Knights. It's like
Oh
their things go
gosh.
off on like a 3, and it's like the
Yeah.
amount of ones and twos I roll, not
Yeah.
worth it. But it's like, yeah, it's cool to make your like a 5-man interceptor unit have exploding wounding 6s. That's real cool with an extra mortal when you're in convergence. But I wouldn't play the chaplain. The librarian, if I don't
Yeah.
like the mortal wounding version, I think if I go sword bearers, I still play the 2 tech marines because making 2 of your normal dreadknights into functional grandmasters and shooting, along with healing something for flat 3 and healing something for D3, that's a lot of consistency, and that's a
Yeah.
lot more work that your opponents have to put into something. Because what it's going
That's
to be is them having to focus down one dread a turn and leaving all of your other ones unscathed because you're just going to heal them right back up.
that's like what I ran before the multiple Brotherhood nerf. Like I ran the quintessential 5 Dreadknight list with 2 Tech Marines. Um as many interceptors as I could slam in there, and then, 15 strikes, and that was my whole list. And it was a lot of fun. If you like big stompy robots, that was a lot of fun. So
Great. Other than that, I don't think I'd change up anything else. I'm pretty sold on 3 strikes. I'm sold on 25 interceptors. I'm real sad that I can't run 30 anymore because of the nerf they got on points. Uh, Occasionally, I feel like spicing it up with a rhino, only because with a rhino, I'm actually incentivized to put a 10-man interceptor in there instead of combat squatting them. And but when it comes to running 10 mans of things that could be combat squatted, most of the things now is if I get in melee with something that's good in melee these days, or if I'm against a good shooting army, chances are they're just gonna wipe out all 10 in
yeah,
one fell swoop. And then I lost 2 5-mans at one time instead of them just killing one 5-man.
it's a
Uh,
very killy meta out there right now. Very, very
yep.
killy. Yeah. It's like it's like fight lasts so strong because it happens at the beginning of the fight phase, whether it's like your fight phase or not,
Yep.
and in some cases depending on the wording of the ability. But fight first is like kind of always bad unless you can get it like army wide or on multiple units, and that way you get a free interrupt. Because otherwise, like your opponent swings at you, you generally speaking, you'll lose that unit. Like it's just the meta is so damn killy. And the same thing is true for us. If we swing into like something first, generally speaking, it's going to die, right? Maybe not Death Guard Terminators or whatever, but you know what I mean. Like generally speaking, like you're gonna mince whatever you get into combat with. So, yeah, losing your 10-man sucks. But the other benefit of a Rhino, there are 2 of them. One is you get that extra 3 inches of movement, which is kind of nice. So you can do like a 15-inch movement as you climb out, and then you can still use the psychic power to move another 12 inches, so that's 27 inches of movement potentially, which is insane. And then like rhinos are actually, I've come to kind of come to reconsider them for move blocking.
Oh yeah, rhinos move
Like,
block so well.
They're T7, they're small-ish, but so like you can stick them sideways between two ruins, block off an entire like middle ground, you force them to deal with it. It's T7, so it's not the weakest thing on the board, but it's, you know, it's, I don't know.
No.
For 80 points, they're not bad. I just
we
wish
know,
they had fly, but obviously they don't.
Do our rhinos get AOC?
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, that's spicy. I like that.
Because it's a Sanctic Astartes, pretty sure. So let me check. I am 90% sure that that's true.
Okay, because I mean that means rhinos also have the smokescreen keyword, so now they get AOC, and you can pop the smokescreen strap to make them -1 to hit.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
So they are Sanctic Astartes. So yes, they also get the 5+ feel no pain immortal wounds. They get the Aegis, so which is nice.
Yeah, it's like the thing I like about rhinos as well is they're actually not only good for move blocking, but all of your all of the little models, like a 5-man interceptor squad, hides behind that rhino perfectly. So depending on where you put it, they're not going to have a line of shot on it. So it's like that's really nice.
Yeah, big benefit there. But I need to start closing this down. I have to go to work now. Stupid work. Quinn, thank you very much for hanging out with me for 2.5 hours. Thank you for rolling with the punches on apparently our inability to communicate via text.
Oh no, I had you didn't get back to me. I had my alarm set for 8, and then a second alarm set for 8:15 because I tend to hit snooze and then fall right back asleep. So then when I looked at my phone, I was like, "Hey, there he is!" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll hop out of bed."
All right. Well, thank you very much. And gosh, I look forward to seeing how your lists progress. And thank you everybody for showing up. Obviously, like and comment and subscribe and all that jazz, and share. And don't forget,